because of that Mark card. So that actually could come back and be quite a big problem here going into the last round. As we look at the hands.
What a mulligan. That is fantastic.
Whoa. That's awful. That's so bad.
Oh, I'm talking about the Monster's Nest.
Yeah, that's an awful draw though, because it means that his Whispus is dead.
That's true. Well, the magic is already used. Oh man. I'm thinking here I was thinking that I'm obviously this is why you're the pro and I am just here along for the ride because I see that card and I just, to me that represents a solid, 15 to 18 points of value right there. That coupled with the Osriel, which himself is looking to be a 21-point play. I thought that maybe this one is going to be completely out of reach, but that 6-point drop could, be a little bit of the whiff that Sexual Heal needs to, recover some of that momentum that he's losing.
Yeah, we see on Heal's side that he drew a second priest this year. It's basically just going to give him a hunter most likely. The hunters represent a pretty nice point total overall here. We see him. It's an interesting Oswald there. He didn't eat the Alpha Werewolf, which was a 16. So I'm kind of he's just going to get a ghoul off the monster nest, so that's fine. He's just kind of baiting out the Coral if his opponent has a Coral. You'd expect that to come out pretty much right away. You do know that your opponent though has the monster's nest in hand because that was a dead Weebus. 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 I always mix those two up.
This is coming down to the wire here.
Yeah, I do think that overall these are probably the two best cards in both players' hands at this point in their decks, other than maybe the Coral if he's playing it in the Croc deck. Generally, there's few things that are better than a Priestess in round 3 after you've gotten all the vet triggers off. They're such a powerful card. They make all of your cards so much better the later this game goes. So we see him here looking through his graveyard. I think he is the only option here since he did already rest the other Beastmaster. Is the Hunter? Oh no, he has the third Beastmaster. So I think this actually represents one more point.
Let's roll the Triss and see what happens here.
He gets the recon. He should have a Solstice. Oh no!
Oh, actually, if he goes with the Blood Moon onto the top row, that should do it.
I think he just barely gets it.
There
he gets 6. He will get 6 either way because on the top row there's 4 units, but there's 2-1, so it would equal 6 anyway. And he just barely ekes it out with an offensive Moonlight here. And that'll actually do it for the series. That's a 3-1 win for Son of Flame over Sexual Heal. Now, I guess that we're going to go back to our overlay here. If Lockin is still around and can get it up for us, so it'll be up momentarily.
I mean, two points of interest over here that I want to touch upon. First being that as much as this is going to be, good for us, Sex Will Heal is no longer going through, which means that we no longer have to say Sex Will Heal.
We'll see in the third place match, I believe. I think that we're doing a third place match today.
Are we? I don't know about. We'll bring Lockin back in here. Lockin sort of was taking care of. He was playing Mr. Fix-It over there. He brought in his friend Technician, which is amazing. Hopefully, he did not pay him because we don't have that kind of budget over here at NA RuGwent. But Son of Flame comes in, takes that series 3-1. Which was interesting because there was some significant, some very notable decks. One of which being a pure Moonlight deck, which came down and surprised. I don't want to say everyone, but it surprised me. Because I don't think that would ever have any kind of enough punch to it to take down something like Veterans, which just in round 3 will slam down 18 to 20 point bronzes, no problem.
Yeah, something interesting with Moonlight.
Lockin, you're still muted, buddy.
Oh, am I? That is.
So Lockin's.
My apologies.
There we go.
I was actually muted only for you guys. The stream could hear me. I played myself and you guys. It's okay. We are fixed now. We're back. We're doing great. Apologize for those technical difficulties. Streamlabs' fault, not mine. Anyway, now that we're back, I was gonna say, something interesting that Moonlight does is. A lot of times Moonlight tries to keep its card and then just go in and win that there. And like Flake said, that's not something you would typically see because that's a pretty risky strategy. Oftentimes, if your opponent has a spy or they have everything that they need, they can prevent you from being able to have that card. And that's not something that I would ever really expect to see in like a semifinals match is full Moonlight with, like Maruna and, triple Alpha Werewolf.
Yeah, and we did see their situation where even with him having a dead draw there with his Crone, so it was just 6-point gold in round 3, we still saw him be able to pull it out there, which is insanely good. A situation where both games that he played with that deck that we saw, he wound up getting the Monster Nest into a Ghoul and then an Oswald. So that's actually like the biggest results his deck can do. And he got it both times, and that's how you're going to contest those really short, powerful round threes is with those 2 power cards. And we've seen it constantly with him, where the first time round against the River deck, he was just a little bit short. This time around, he got it by just a point. So really, really good overall. Really great lineup from him, I thought. I thought that it was a great play on his part. He banned out the Nulf card so that his lineup wouldn't have to deal with varied threats they have there. He brought just the absolute nut hard counter against Arrakis Queen there. We saw the Coral come out with the AC that he knew for the Coral. Everything on the earth that could kill a Necker did so. And then the Moonlight deck, like we talked about, he got a long round with it, which you can't contest. He gets multiple free points every single round out of it, which lets him always guarantee 1 round. And then he hit his power cards when he needed to. Had that short round 3 that even correct cards, he could still pull out the points against a deck that's known for bringing out really powerful 2 and 3 card rounds.
Yeah, and Flake, I was hoping you could actually help us looking towards the next games. I believe we have, is it Yandex and Miracle, I believe, are going next. And if you want to help me out here and break down, do you actually have the leaders? I believe they are both bringing Calvite. I believe that's the only overlap we see on their leaders, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me take a quick gander over here. Yeah, so the round 2 match, or I call it the round 2, but the second semifinal matchup is going to be Yandex versus Tin Miracle. Of course, Tin Miracle spelt in an interesting way that makes me question my existence, but that's still fine. So the 2 leaders, I mean, like you said, there's the overlap that's occurring over here is minimal. I mean, the Calvate,
They must have been Croc too. They must have Croc.
But one Croc is, but so is it Yandex's Croc has been banned, so you'll only see the only time you'll ever see like a true mirror here will be Calvate versus Calvate if that ever occurs. Nonetheless, Yandex bringing Etne, Yan, Calvate, and Dagon, and that is going to be against Tin Miracles, Croc and Krite, Bruver, and also a John Calvate or Jan Calvate, or depends on where you are in the world.
You got to move them back and forth between both the players. Come on. So we see it really interesting here that we do see Yandex here banning out full test from his opponent, which is actually just not the normal thing that you really see overall. People banning that deck out. We do see focus. Like I'm fine with it in a situation where if you don't know what that deck is or you're not prepared for it, get rid of it. We saw that a lot in the last 2 major events at the RuGwent Open and the Wild Hunt 2 event. We saw a lot of people do really well when they ban out the things that might have just been out of the ordinary that they weren't prepared for. Play against what your lineup is prepped for. In this case, it's probably not a full test deck. So I'm actually fine with that ban, I think, overall.
I think Miracle actually, his lineup actually is almost identical to what I brought to Wild Hunt. And if he is afraid of full test, that does probably mean he's playing Soldier Calvite. Just because Soldiers gets completely destroyed by Northern Realms thanks to the existence of Battering Ram and the short round potential they have with cards like DJ and Shawnee. I think Miracle, if he is bringing Soldiers, Shoop, and Swords, is very similar to a lineup that I liked a lot when I took it to Wild Hunt that I thought was pretty solid. Interestingly enough, though, this is a slightly different meta than what we've seen at some of the previous opens. We're seeing a lot of Ithne. We're seeing Greatswords not being like necessarily just the end-all be-all of bringing this here. We just saw the Veterans game. We're seeing some Greatswords just being banned out entirely. We're seeing Moonlights. There's a bit more variety here than at a lot of recent tournaments. So I'm interested to see if Miracle's lineup, which is kind of just a vanilla good stuff lineup, is actually going to be able to compete with Yandex's lineup that seems to have like a very clear-cut target going on.
I just want to take note here. I mean, you're mentioning that Ethne's sort of resurgence lately over Bruver. Bruver used to be kind of the auto pick for Scoia'tael, but I'm thinking that Ethne's choices or the resurgence to popularity could be, from a tournament perspective, the fact that it might be that fix-all for decks that have a lot of engine pieces, things like, where you can replay that Mandrake twice and replay that, the Scorch against big, like a giant mulligan deck or something. But when you're playing Ethne, you can rely on that artifact compression twice to take care of the Dows and take care of the Neckers and take care of the Great Swords or this or that. So I'm thinking it might literally just be in there to shut out or get rid of or win a game against an archetype that you might not have, like, be equipped to beat. But I like your thoughts about banning full test because I played yesterday for a few hours and playing against Northern Realms pretty much almost every single game, or it was either soldiers or it was full test. But at least from Nilfgaard, it was soldiers. But from the full test, from the Northern Realms perspective, full test usually offered a lot of variety. I mean, it's rare that you see machines in a full test deck. Usually they take it from a swarm perspective. But it could just be that you're right. I mean, he doesn't know what's coming, and if he's playing Calvate with soldiers and a little bit of a swarm mentality, you don't want to just walk into a situation where you already know you're losing after 4 or 5 cards of play, right? So I do like Ethne in this, and I'm okay with these bans. I mean, full test, you never know what you're going to get, so why take the risk?
Yeah, I actually brought Ithne the last event to the Wild Hunt event last weekend, and it's basically the reasons you said. Ithne is, overall, she's not as powerful in terms of raw points as a Brewer is, but she's a leader that will let you reuse your cards that you bring specifically for certain matchups. Like Artifact Compression, Thunder, Weather, Decoy, any of those are cards that you want to be able to reuse, and they're powerful things in a tournament setting where you target specific things. So if you're expecting, say, Great Swords, if you're expecting even veterans, it's fine against anything in Skellige. Generally, Skellige is going to be an engine deck or a deck that relies around specific pieces. Ithne is a card that will let you counter that very efficiently. She's great against a lot of the monster decks. She's insanely good with Artifact Compression against Arrakis Queen. So I think that's a great pick, and I think that at least in tournament settings, I expect to see her be a bit more, maybe not more prevalent, but I expect to see her pull out more wins and be more consistent in tournaments than Brewer. So overall, though, I'm really looking forward to this. I think that, I don't know, I'm still figuring out which way to lean. I think I'm going to lean slightly towards Yandex and his lineup. I really like the Ithne. I think that having a Dagon up against your opponent who doesn't have any kind of Dagon and might not have weather clears could be really good if it fits it in the right matchup. So overall, I think that I'd side with Yandex in this, taking it pretty handily. What do you two think?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as well. I am leaning a little bit towards the index, but we are actually just getting straight into the games now. And we're seeing Dagon versus Calvite to start off, and that is a Calvite Alchemy versus just a standard Death Wish, it looks like.
Yeah, not loving that Alchemy hand to start out with, but I do love that Yandex. I love that Yandex led with the Dagon. Like I was saying earlier, you with it to get the most value you can out of your weathers, and the only weather counter deck, quote unquote, would be the Brewer deck that could have multiple weather clears. So I love seeing if you can play out right away, get your most weather value when you can. And this should be a fun matchup. This is one that traditionally has been played a lot overall, the Deathwish versus Alchemy matchup, and it's pretty skill intensive overall, I think.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I think, obviously, Deathwish is, not what he wants to see there on the double Mahakamail. He's a little upset about that one, but...
It's fine. You can't. You need to get an anointment target in your graveyard stat. So I think this isn't that bad.
Yeah, that's true. I guess maybe he's even thinking getting the Mahakamail down while it's less points for next round. It makes it more likely he finds a Swallow if he has to lead with it, because we do know obviously he's going to have to play in. And like you mentioned, he's not loving that hand. Triple Ointment, a bit of a bummer, and he doesn't actually find another Mahakamail, so he's probably pretty happy there. But I was going to say, something that, everyone kind of repeats a lot is, Alchemy is unfavored into Deathwish, the matchup is impossible, because their units all have, the Deathwish, obviously, and Alchemy gets valued for moving things, but I don't think that's always necessarily just... I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think that Alchemy has a lot of ways it can play around with this matchup. I think knowing when to Mandrake a Dow versus when to save Mandrake for like a big Ozroll is a part of knowing the skill of being able to read what your opponent is doing and knowing what you're doing. I think how you use a Seer is a really big part of this matchup. So I really like that as well. And another double Mahakamail here from Miracle.
Yeah, we might see a situation here where he's not running more than maybe one of them. It really depends on, we don't know whether he's playing the 9 or 10 Alchemy version. That's kind of still up in the air and kind of up to personal preference here overall with how you build the deck. The deck is very flexible with how you build it. One thing that will be constant overall is that you want as many Viper Witches as humanly possible the entire time. What you see is just the one he likes to use it right away here to get rid of that Dagon. Overall, going forward here, you touch on a lot of the points I think are really, really important in this matchup. And one of the big ones here is how do you control the Deathwish units? Well, he has the Mandrake in hand. He has the Viper Witchers, at least 2 of them out of his deck that are going to be there for point targets round 3. He has the Asire and he has the Mandrake. So he has a lot of tools here that interact with them. So it'll be curious to see how he goes with them going forward here. And we do see him elect Mandrake this first out right away, get it out of the way. I love this play personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's typically almost always the way you want to go. I want to run something by you that I actually like a lot that I've talked to a few people about. We actually saw it happen a couple times at Red Dragon and actually at Wild Hunt this past weekend, was Alchemy players just saying, you know what, your deck is really good in a long round. I can't keep up with you. I can't keep my card, but my deck is insane. If I have 2 or 3 cards left, I'm fine giving you a card, and I'm just going to play all of my really good stuff, and I'm going to set up a great round 3. And I think oftentimes if the Alchemy player can manage to do that while only being a card down, I think that's a really big deal. Obviously, we see Miracle is actually effectively 3 cards down here, and he is thinking about a pass here, but I actually like to see the Alchemy player bleed a bit more here. I'm not sure if that's just personal preference. What do you think, Vishra?
Generally, I prefer the bleed too. I think you might be in a situation where it might be a little bit too late for that. You're just not in a great spot, unfortunately, with how your hand was, with how the overall just
yeah.
mulligans win as well. It's not great for you going into this, I think. The issue with committing here is that it might give more Death Wish options for Yandex going in round 3, and then that also lines up that Brewers perfectly for him. So I'm not a huge fan of that either. We'll see just how much he can get out of his opponent here. But I don't think it's looking great right now for him with what he has. As we see the Sire coming out really early, the one thing I do like about this is that because he did draw that Mandrake to hand, which is normally a bad thing, he can almost Sire it back in, and then he also has the immediate option with the Vesemir to get rid of a second Dow. So I do love this option for him, and we'll see whether he elects to pull the trigger now or if he wants to wait on that.
Yeah, agreed. And something also that I mentioned earlier that I think is still just really important to reiterate is I think Asir is a card that arguably may be a bit too strong just overall for what it does. But I think that something that's really nice about Asir is how skill intensive the card is in a lot of matchups.
Mm-hmm.
You rarely play Asir the same way. Oftentimes, you're using Asir in different ways to do different things. And I do think that's a really cool mechanic. So I like to see the round 2 Asir here, like you mentioned, to deny it. And I like this as well. He was setting up for this. He wanted to deny Death Wish, then he wanted to steal the Dow. He wants to really deny those Griffins, and I like this a lot.
Yeah, I love the overall play, and I love the Vikavar medic here too. It's kind of that back and forth. That's where the skill in this matchup comes from, is that play with the Death Wish units. We see that he's down resources just off of raw cards because of how his hand was and because he had to go. He was the first one to play a card in this round. All of that, we see that he's down that way, but he's focusing on what matters in this matchup. That's the Death Wish units themselves. Unfortunately for him, there's a lot of back and forth with the index being prepared for it, thanks to things like the muzzle here. We see a lot of really, really powerful cards that can go back and forth and make a lot of play that way. So we see a little bit of a hand mix up here. So we apologize for that. We will get that hopefully fixed here going forward, as the index hand is not showing up what's played yet.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get it fixed. Unfortunately, not something on our end that we can control. So we'll hope that the stream, does go ahead and catch up. And that is, I'm afraid, out of our control. But at the moment, we know Yandex has used 5 cards. That Muzzle and ADC are both currently not in his hand, and neither is that Frightener. So hopefully here in a second we will see it fixed, but doesn't look like it's going to fix itself quite yet. So for the meantime, we're just going to have to hope that you'll bear with this as we see him go ahead and going to use Vesemir onto the Mandrake to deny a Dow again. He has denied so many Dows this game, actually.
Now, I believe this is the last Dow. I believe that both ones in hand were already used. 2 of them are now Mandrake, and then before that one was Vikavar medic and then muzzled back. So we saw a lot of those cards get played. We saw a lot play out that way. So we are seeing here that he does have at least a partial answer to that Brewers, but the Brewers did get full value, and she's going to be a problem here overall. As we see She-Troll of Bergen come out, and this is a huge card that we don't see that often anymore. Really, really helps in a lot of situations. And this one is not as great because all it does here is give him just the Dow's procs. But knowing that he has She-Troll in this deck is huge because it means that he has a lot of versatile options that other versions of this deck don't have anymore.
Yeah, and there was a time when She-Troll was actually a staple. She-Troll onto Rotfiend was considered just an insane power play, and honestly, the meta is almost arguably open enough to run that again. Obviously, you don't want to draw the Rotfiend, but there are some board states where honestly just Rotfiend and then Cyclops on the Rotfiend is a pretty big deal, so I kind of liked the She-Troll a little bit. I think it's making a bit of a comeback. It's growing on me.
Yeah, it's great for what the Dagon Deathwish mirror matches because that's where that card reigns king because you can use it repeatedly. Thanks to Brewis, thanks to Griffin, thanks to Cyclops throwing it, thanks to She-Troll. You have multiple accesses throughout the matchup, so it's kind of a key card there. Here, though, it's not as great, but we see him get value out of it, as we do see Tin Miracle's going to go ahead here, use that Viper Witcher, and he was going to hope there that the Arcaspore proc would hit the Vic of Arnoms. Unfortunately for him, it doesn't there, so he takes the full 4 points of damage here. Now, going into this, since we're going in blind from the Yandex's perspective, if you're Tin Miracle, what are you looking to do with these last 2 cards, and how are you looking to finish playing this round out?
So if it's me, obviously I'm looking to use the Black Blood on a Ghoul, ideally just to snipe the Frightener in the deck, and then probably Vilgefortz onto a Novice, just because it's the lowest point total. Swallow, probably not what he was looking for, but at the same time, there's not really a lot that great left in his deck. So he's just kind of thinking right now, okay, what is my opponent likely to have? So Vilgefortz coming down as a 17, probably not what he was looking for, and if he does find the Ghoul, that's only 19 more, so it's going to be a pretty close game. I believe Yandex has this, but if he does find the Ghoul, that is a lot of points, and he does find it.
Yeah, the Vadavaka here was a big deal, but the Black Blood here, getting him that Ghoul is a huge deal. We see that he gets to go ahead here, get the maximum value out of that card that he possibly can. It really comes down to just what Yandex has left. This is basically as good as Tin Miracle could ask for, given the hand situation going into this round. Do we see 13 points? We do see the Oslo come out here, and it also beats a spell on the Yandex side, so we him take this matchup. Overall, was still, even with those bad draws out of Miracle's side, we did see a pretty competitive matchup overall there. And at the end of the day, Yandex had the better hand for round 3, just turned out better for him overall. So well played to both of them in that first game.
Yeah, that was a really, really close game that honestly I thought wasn't going to be as close as it ended up being. I actually thought that Miracle had no chance going into that round 3. I thought his hand was just not going to allow him to keep up there. But honestly, really close. I mean, Yandex in a matchup that I thought he would actually take rather handily after we saw the way round 2 played out. Not looking very good, but Miracle actually finding that Cantarella off of Calvite in round 2, I think saved his hide. I think he got to thin that out. He got to safely play it, not worry about having to go 2 cards down. I think if he hadn't found that Cantarella off of Calvite, he might have been in trouble.
And now going to the next round, we see that he's gotten his day out of the perfect for him. That's what I would have lit off with as well. We see Ice Knee and Calvite out of him against the full lineup still for Miracle. What are you playing from either of these players' perspectives going into the next game? What are you looking for?
So right now, if I'm Yandex and I do have the lead, I'm probably looking to just maybe queue my Calvite. I don't know if Calvite, okay, and that he actually does decide to queue it. I'm not sure if Yandex's Calvite is Soldier or Alchemy, but those are both favored into Croc, and you know that Miracle is going to have to bring Croc eventually, so I kind of like the Calvite queue here, and we do see it is Alchemy. We can see the Guardian, we can see the Alchemy cards. The classic Roach in hand is a staple of all Alchemy, so I do like the Calvite queue here a lot, because I think if you snipe Croc with it, it's fantastic. But Miracle not playing swords, he's playing this control Skelegalist that's been rising in popularity lately.
Yeah, and again, we see the hand. We saw this last round show up with Son of Flame, where just the hand full of removal the entire time. Here we do see this play, which is actually really nice using the Pirate Captain to pull out the Pirate, thin your deck, get a full 12 points on board. Not a bad play overall. And overall, just look at this deck overall. It has a absolute ton of removal. As we see the Champion of Hob come down here, clear off that 11 points and still leave 2 behind. This deck is one that's not very popular, at least from my perspective. I haven't seen it much in Pro Ladder recently. Tinmir, I believe actually 3 of our 4 players, everyone but Son of Flame is around the top 100 ladder player right now. So this might be something that is tech from a newer player. It might just be in the Russian meta, because the Russian players tend to also play things that might be a bit more different than the standard stuff brought from other regions. But this deck is looking great so far. Just look at this hand. Removal after removal after removal. Higher way down the deck. It's just insane.
Yeah, and something that I've noticed myself is from talking to guys like Colmoan, like Apologize, guys like that, who I do kind of talk to regularly, is that, like you mentioned, this deck is not very popular. There was just a Russian player, I believe, that did kind of innovate the list itself, and it sort of started gaining popularity amongst guys that play Pro Ladder every single day. But like you mentioned, this is not a list you would expect to see unless you were kind of just playing, Pro Ladder every single day, because this is not a normal deck. This deck is interesting. I've seen a list very similar to this that instead of running a Decoy Invader runs Champion of Hov and things like that, but it also runs Jenga and Herald just for more points. Obviously, cards like that make the greatsword matchup worse, but I sort of like what people are doing. I like that people are adapting to what the metagame is, and it's really cool that even during like this kind of, this new content drought, we're seeing the meta constantly evolve as people are saying, okay, the meta is very good for decks A and B. I'm going to play removal with, cards like Renew and Coral and Champion of Hove and Decoy and Vader, and that's really cool to see. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and we see here that Tim Miracle was able to actually reverse the coin flip there. He got ahead in points and managed to get that card back. So it's a great situation from him here as we go into round 2. He is down around, so he does have to get that win on this round around. As we see a spy change here. And here it's a pretty easy scorch, I do think. Generally, with the Alchemy deck, you can expect that Cantrell is going to get hit by Vipe Witcher pretty quickly overall, so that scorch should get something in. Again, just seeing the choices out of this deck overall, the Decoy for the Champion of Pav, the Scorch, the Core Renew most likely, since we saw the Renew already. Just everything with this deck screams, I have removal, let's fight on the board. So we'll see whether or not that's enough to actually fight against Alchemy, which is traditionally a very, very strong removal deck and very strong board control. And here we do see the Vipe Witcher come out. I don't expect any kind of Magic shenanigans here, but who knows? This deck has a lot of different things that it can do and a lot of flexibility. So we'll see just how deep we play this round for Tim Miracle and what all tricks he can pull out with this deck.
And notably as well, we are seeing that Alchemy doing its, kind of standard removal practice, and we're seeing the Skellige deck do its own thing here as well. Just constant removal.
Now, this Fog is interesting, because normally you'll see a Fog go on the Udalryk. In this case, he has the Scorch already. He knows he has a Scorch target. I really like the Fog there because he knows that if this deck gets to play the way it wants to, that Mahakam is going to come out and he's going to start buffing stuff. So we can get it out early there and not have to worry about losing points where other decks might have to worry about it. Alchemy is one that's always going to give you points like that. So great play by Tin Miracle there, getting his Weather down right away and getting those points off as we see it. The answer with the Novice and the answer by the Light Longship. And now we see an early Triss here. What do you think about that play? Ton of points coming out here. We see the Triss into the Roach, into Novice, into Swallow, getting a huge amount of points, 22 points total there to pull up very well ahead of Miracle here.
Yeah, and I like it a lot to see the Triss come down here because it does actually force Miracle to commit just even higher tempo stuff, because really all this Control Skellige deck is doing is removing stuff slowly over time.
And here we do see a great play out of Tin Miracle, using that Whaler, pulling the Udalryk to that middle row so that now he has a great Scorch lineup for next turn if nothing goes wrong from here. Oh no, and the Mahakam, both of the 12s lining up an even better Scorch here out of Tin Miracle, and we're going to see him snap that off immediately for a 32-point Scorch here. That is disaster for Yandex. Okay, and let's see here. What do we have next coming out of Yandex? He has to respond to that. Now he's decided if he wants to stay in this round or if he wants to get out of the round. And not having his hand here is actually going to be fairly interesting. As we look forward here, Lockin is muted for a second, so chat, I'm going to take this over by myself. Not being able to see Yannex's hand here actually makes it really interesting for what he'll do. We see him actually decide to commit another goal this round. Goes ahead with the Vocal Forts, pops his Viper Witcher there to grab the Vic of Aromatic here, and he's going to get a great res here. With 11 points, not so great. He preferred to use that on, say, a Whaler or something that's been buffed later in round 3. But he'll take points when he can get them here. He wants to just barely stay ahead of his opponent if he can here and force out extra cards. As we see the Asire coming out early here. And there's a lot of things here he can do with this. He can put the Udalryk back in, hopefully maybe brick a draw here. Since this is created, he can also maybe do some flexible things with his own. Instead, he likes to just put back the Udalryk, and we can't quite catch what the second one is. And we'll see here what Yandex wants to commit here, as it looks like he's going to commit pretty heavily into this round here. He wants to bleed as much out of Tin Miracle as he can. He gets a third gold out this round, so he's committing very heavily this round. Gets his Ointment here, and it looks like he'll probably get a Viper Witcher chain eventually. Oh, interesting. So he elects to get the Swallow there. We don't know, unfortunately, if that was a choice or if he could have gotten an Ointment, but he elects to go for the lower point player role and doesn't get that Viper Witcher back out here. And Tin Miracle here has to keep up. He's getting the 2 points a turn for the last pick next to him, the Roach. He needs to pull ahead here. He needs to try to get basically force Yandex out of this round as much as possible. He wants to get out of this with as many resources as possible because a short round 3 generally is Alchemy's not exactly always going to win it, but it is fairly heavily favored in a lot of round threes where it can leverage its very high tempo plays, like white mint chains, like high powered golds. So we'll see if Miracle can force him out here. He does have those whalers left to also pull into the fog if he wants, and the coral might come out here to snipe off that large pick of our knobs this turn.
Yeah, and we're looking here, and I am, of course, back. So thankfully, I have returned. And Vish holding down the fort by himself, doing a fantastic job. But I just wanted to point out as well, Miracle's whole game plan here is just, keeping his card. And I think that's why we've seen Yandex try to get that card out of him, but I think Yandex has realized he's not going to be able to, and we see him instead just elect to use Mandrake on Calvite for a bit of carryover, because Miracle is...
I wonder what that's going to hit.
Yeah, and we're seeing now as well that Miracle's just electing to use the lowest value cards, these Whale Harpooners, of course, and honestly, Miracle keeping his card here with Restore seems like a pretty easy win for him, even though the Yandex does have the Kahir with an 11-point Calvite. Restore is a heck of a card, but I guess so is an 11-point Calvite. It's going to be really close.
Yeah, overall, it's really hard to ever count Alchemy out in round 3, even if they're down a card, because of the power of their hands and their cards. So we'll see if he has that Kahir. Generally, that Mandrake is a clear-cut sign that you have the Kahir and you're ready to go for that full point play.
Okay, so we are role-playing Miracle here a bit. We are role-playing him effectively in that we don't know Yandex's hand either. So we do see the Kahir come down. So right now, effectively, we kind of are role-playing from Miracle's point of view in that you have to think about what your opponent's going to have. So if you're Yandex, you want to go Kahir into Calvite, into potentially an Alchemy chain, into, removing that. But Bjorna, not the greatest removal target. So Miracle here is going to have to hope that Pirate Captains and Restore can carry him. They are a heck of a card.
Yeah, the big thing here is that Restore can give him a Pirate Captain, which will give him a Corsair, which likely gives him a Whaler here, because he has that Burden going in the back row. Even though she died, she's not the target you really want to see in this matchup. You really want to get a full 10 out of your Viper suit if you can. And here we just see him go ahead. He gets that full play like we talked about, pulls the Calvite back, and it looks like that Viper Butcher probably won't be enough here, as Miracle has the last Pirate Captain. Pull up the Corsair, and whatever he wants wins it here for him. So he takes it in a very good fashion here overall. Yandex can't get that card back in round 2. That's pretty much just the turning point of this game, I think, overall, is that Yandex tried to commit heavily to get that card back, and when he failed, he didn't have a powerful enough round 3.
Agreed, and that's just like the power of this Control Skelly deck. I think I'm falling in love, Vishra. This deck is really cool. Like, I haven't seen this too much at a really, high level. You see it I've seen it a little bit on Pro Ladder, but I haven't played a ton of Pro Ladder myself. I've just been hearing rumors of it, but seeing it in actual tournament play where you can build a lineup to target something, now you have another deck in your wheelhouse for playing this control removal style, and that's really cool to see. I'm actually a really big fan of what we're seeing with this deck.
Yeah, this is a deck that overall, you set it pretty well yourself, that this is a deck that might not be the best on Pro Ladder, and it might not see as much play there. It might have less of an overall win rate or good situations for it. In a tournament format like this, where you can pick and ban what you're going to see, it thrives. And the overall removal suite for it is great. You have weather, you have hard removal, and things like coral and artifact compression. You have soft removal. It's also repeatable thanks to things like Pirate Corsair, or the Clan Corsair. It's overall going to be a great situation like this. And so far, the 2 times we've seen this deck, it has crushed overall. So going forward now, it's a 1-on-1 for Tin Miracle and Yandex. What do you like out of both these players? You've seen Yandex here with his Alchemy deck. Do you think we see both these players roll back the Alchemy decks, or do we see them break out their third decks now?
So if I'm Yandex, I actually wonder if I bring Dagon now. Or wait, am I?
We already have the win for the Dagon.
I was gonna say, after I said that, I realized I believe we actually already saw the win for the Dagon. So Yandex is deciding between Ithne and Calvite. Miracle's lineup now doesn't actually have a ton of engine-based strategies that Yandex might want to use Ithne for. So he may actually struggle to take some games off of Miracle's presumably Brewer Shoop deck, which is pretty, invulnerable to a lot of control-based strategies like Alchemy or like what some Ithne lists try to do. This could be kind of difficult for Yandex to actually swing back. What do you think?
Overall, I think it's really going to depend on what these players pull out next. We do see that they both have the Calvi, the Alchemy left, I believe. So we did see both of them play it already. So we know that both of them have an Alchemy deck in this lineup, and we can kind of guess that the Brewer and the Ithne decks is being pretty similar to what we've seen in the past so far. I think overall it's going to determine who lines up what where. Can that Brewer or Ithne find the edge it needs overall? Can they find the right cards for the specific matchups they want to look for? And if we wind up in an Alchemy mirror, that's actually a super skill-intensive matchup that's only gotten more skill-intensive since the Slave Infantry nerf. I really, really am curious to see if that pulls out, who winds up in a better position there, because I think that matchup is one that's almost entirely on skill. The coin flip situation is one that's been played out a lot in the past, and players are really, really well versed in at high levels. So I don't think the coin flip is going to matter in that matchup. What matters is who can play it better down to the very end. So I actually really want to see that come out, and I think if that does happen, whoever wins the mirror match will win the entire series.
I'm inclined to agree because winning that mirror match is just such a, not only what it does for you to go up 2-1, but also just mentally what it does to win something like an Alchemy mirror match, because it is just such a big part. That mental, sort of pat on the back that you get when you win the mirror match, when you win something like that, is a pretty, good feeling. And let's assume that Yandex wins the matchup. He now gets to run Ithne back twice, and he knows that he has, at least at some point, he's going to get at least a 50-50 matchup. And if Miracle does that and he wins the mirror, he gets to run his Broofer back twice, and he knows that at some point he will also get a 50-50 matchup. So I like what you said, because if you win the Alchemy mirror, you take your destiny into your own hands, because at least at some point you're going to queue into a matchup where if you play perfectly, you probably will win. And that's a really cool thing to see in these tournaments. Is just overall just a situation where the better player will definitely win. That's what's really cool to see.
Yeah, it's hard to have to count either of those players out either with presumably a pair of Shoop decks. The Ithne deck might not be a Shoop deck, you still have to wait and see for it, but if they are both Shoop decks, it's hard to ever count out a situation where somebody has Shoop and can just play a card that can flip the board. So I'm really curious to see how that turns out with it. What do you think overall with the Shoop decks being the thing that Ithne players seem to be bringing with this tournament? Because I think that overall we expected a lot more standard Dwarf Ithne lists popping around, but it seems like players might be gravitating more towards Shoop in tournament play.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned it earlier. If you take the Ithne, you're not bringing Brewer. That does mean you have less potential points. But I think that there is something to be said for what Ithne offers, but I'm not sure if I'm convinced. I do think that a lot of Shoop's power obviously, relies on Shoop itself, but I think there's something to be said for your silvers like Vader, like Ida, like Hattori, like Barclay. I kind of like that Brewer gives you this, metaphorical toolbox to just sort of say, okay, you know what, you got that? All right, I got this. And I kind of like that. And I like that, Brewer's not really a card that is dead just because it can always pull a dwarf in like a panic situation. If it has to, you can mulligan back Hattori if you need to pull it again. Brewer's never really a dead card, so I don't think that's too big of a deal. And I kind of like what Brewer does, giving you like a wheelhouse of options and just guaranteeing your really powerful silvers. Ithne, I think, has the potential to be really good, but I'm not sure if you have enough tutors in Shoop to get away with it. I'm not convinced yet. I'm hoping these players that we're seeing here today are going to convince me, because I would love to see another like competitive version of Shoop come out. I think it would be really awesome.
Yeah, and it's really cool that we've seen the progression kind of with Scoia'tael over the last few months. At the start of the last patch, it was one that I thought was going to get utterly gutted, because at the time it was easily the best deck in the game. We all remember the days of the War Dancers and into Cleaver and all of those shenanigans. We all remember all of that, and no one liked it. But then we saw the nerfs come out, and we saw, well, Cleaver can't fetch your spy anymore. War Dancer no gives you carryover. This could be a really big hit for Scoia'tael overall. And we saw a lot of people kind of theorize that Scoia'tael was in a really bad spot now, and that the Scoia'tael decks would basically kind of start to fade off. And it hasn't been the case yet. We've actually seen a huge amount between the last 3 tournaments. We've seen a huge amount of Scoia'tael, and it's been Northern Realms overall. It's been the odd deck out overall. So it's really nice to see that those decks have progressed. We've seen Shoop and non-Shoop variants come out since then, and I think it's overall really cool to just see that those nerfs might not have actually even ruined the archetype overall or the faction, so much has opened up to a lot more different ingenuity and deck variants.
And that's the thing, right? Is Shoop is himself not that great of a card. I mean, even Flake will tell you himself. Shoop not the greatest of cards, a bit of a bummer. But the Shoop decks, kind of like you said, there's something. It's really nice to see ingenuity and just people trying new things being rewarded. Obviously Shoop himself can be a bit of a bummer card. There are some downsides to a card like Shoop, but again, when you have a deck building requirement like Shoop, when you have these kind of tournament situations where we see people needing to bring different things, that's where we see things like Ithne come in. Because when you have things like Control Skellige and Ithne and Alchemy, well, suddenly a control lineup starts to not look that bad, because that's a problem that we have a lot of the time is, okay, control is a meme in Gwent because you can't put out enough points, but we're seeing this evolution towards decks that can both control and put out points due to cards like Viper Witcher, or due to cards like Pirate Captain and Corsair, because you're not just playing removal, you're playing removal with a body. And we're seeing this evolution over time, and we're seeing this meta evolve. It started out first, who can play more points? Then we saw the evolution to pure control strategies, and now we're seeing the evolution of decks that are trying to do a little bit of both, almost like Gwent's version of mid-range that kind of tries to find that happy balance, and that's really cool to see.
Like, any thoughts?
I honestly
sure
did not know. I kept checking. Kept checking the video to see if we were on, or what the VOD was, not the VOD. Sorry, what the overlay was, and I just noticed that we weren't on until recently, and he caught me sort of looking down at my notes and my phone real quick. But I mean,
gonna have to cut you off, sir, because you took too long, and we're back into it.
That's
we'll see.
Give us 1 second.
That's okay, Flake. If you're more than welcome if you want to join us on this cast for this game.
I actually will. You know what? Just to show you both exactly how a proper cast should go, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of my own spice to this broadcast over here. As he chooses between the guacamole and the delicious ale, we're going to figure out which option he chooses. He has chosen the ale, which is usually the choice I make when I'm sitting alone on a board. That's probably my only friend at this point. Guacamole.
Not a vegetarian.
That's correct. I mean, avocado's not exactly my cup of tea, but cups of tea, also not my cup of tea. Beer, however, always delicious.
And we're seeing right now, we do see that is a double sage in the hand of Yandex. I've just caught a glimpse. I haven't been able to see his hand. He has 2 sages in his hand, presumably to use with Mardromes and Mahakamales. Vishra, you got any ideas what he's trying to go for here?
Yeah, it looks like he's a control deck overall. You can also see, I believe, 2 Elven Mercenaries. So this is going to be old school Ithne control list with Thunders, with Mardromes, with Lacerates, you name it. He has a large removal suite here he can actually pick from. So we're going to see him be much more of the control deck, and I expect multiple Scorches here. As we see, get a little bit of a glimpse of his hand. He has support, so I'd expect maybe Sword Masters too. Oh, we see Siri Nova here. Perfect.
Nova.
So this is actually an old school Nova list, I guess. Love it. We haven't seen Nova in a while, since her nerf a while ago. Oh, good. And we saw the Shoop decks rise to prominence overall, so this is actually really cool. From the Alchemy side, however, we do see the Cubby come out here, and not a great hit overall. He does get the Novice here, has the option with the Swallow or the Mahakamale here, but overall his top 2 cards did not look good. We saw a Roach and possibly a Mahakamale. That's not the one we just saw. It is random, not the top card from Novice. So he might have hit it, he might not have.
Yeah, and 29 points ahead here for Miracle already, just coming out swinging. Alchemy not a deck that really gives a lot of targets to hit, so some of these control strategies for the Ithne player may fall a little bit weak because of the fact that Alchemy sometimes doesn't give a lot to hit at, but we are seeing that this round he is still playing the Mahakamale, still is playing the Swallow, so it's overall looking pretty good. Like, what do you think here about the Siri Nova control style that we're seeing?
I like it, actually. I mean, I'm very much a control style player, just in general, of any type of card game I play. I do prefer control and interaction over just kind of playing the solitaire of point slam of your own board, where you're only really worried about, point totals and such. So I do like seeing it. It's a very interesting addition to it, because with that Siri Nova, obviously you're limiting your removal options and you're really kind of painting yourself into a corner of 2 copies of each. But with those sages, that that does open up a little bit more flexibility, which is nice. I really like this list. It's very interesting, and I want to see how it actually, I mean, because with the alchemy list, you can play points, you can play removal. It has a lot of versatility, but with the ethne list here, I mean, this is very unique, and I'm really glad to see that there's a little bit of ingenuity going on, even at this level. Which, I mean, we've seen it in the past at Wild Hunt where you've had some, not typical decks sort of make it to prominence purely from a surprise factor. So I want to see how Tin Miracle responds to something of this build.
Yeah, one thing to note that we just saw there is that Yandex is playing with Mahakamel's. I guess that would be his main Sage target. Thunder off of Ida if he ever needs to play it. But overall, it looks like that's going to be his #1 target here with those Sages. He also does have Marching Orders in hand that we see come out here. He's already played both Mercs, so we'll see what his best target is here. And it looks like a Swordmaster, actually. So that means that's his lowest thing left in his deck is a 7, or a 5, rather. So no Hattori's coming out, no Barclay, so no dwarf package at all, I'd assume here. And very interesting board state for him here, as we see the pass come out from Tin Miracle here. And this actually will not be, it'll be just enough to catch up because of that fog thinking. So great situation here for Yandex as he's able to pull it back. What do you guys think, though? Tin Miracle was able to catch up there. He was down 2 cards and was able to make enough power play to catch back up this round. What do you two think about where these hands are looking for round 3 forward?
Well, we do obviously see that Tin Miracle's hand is, well, just honestly a fantastic looking hand. The Swallow, not the greatest, but the Kahir, Telekinesis, Vilgefortz, that's just such an insane package of cards that I'm not even sure if Yandex's deck can, we see the Outlaw. I wonder what that's pulling. Worst case scenario, it's pulling a 13 or a 14 off of a Silver Elf. So it's not the end of the world, but I wonder if his deck is capable of putting out enough points here. So it'll be really interesting to watch. I'm not even sure what this is pulling. It's pulling a Hawker support. Yandex's deck is pretty interesting. I gotta say, I'm pretty interested. I like what he's doing here and not running Alzur's Thunder, because I think if you're facing a Greatsword player, you're probably going to use Ida for Thunder anyway, and then you can use Sage on that Thunder. So I think it's not a big deal that he doesn't hard run the Thunder because he has it anyway. So I like what he's doing with his deck. I'm just concerned he might not have enough points to compete with Alchemy.
And we see the Novice come out here. Do pull out a Swallow. We do see another one along with the Triss. So Tin Miracle has the option to pull out as many of his things in his graveyard really as he wants here. And we see the Sage come out here. We do see that power play with the Sage getting back the Mahakamal. It actually matches the Vikavara Novices here, which is actually something that a lot of decks struggle to do, is match the point totals that they can do. So it's great to see him just be able to match toe for toe with those Novices, as we do see the second ointment come out from Tin Miracle here, grabbing a Viper Witcher here and just picking off the first target it can for the full value.
Yeah, and that's just sort of the thing, right? We see these cards that are just trying to get the full value in this matchup. A little bit of removal, a little bit of point slam, a little bit of just everything. We're seeing, a lot of alchemy cards being traded, and that is, I don't actually see the create. Blake, help me out here.
Ida, Hattori, and Aileron.
Yeah. So obviously, Aileron is definitely the pick over here.
That's what I'm thinking as well.
Flake's going Aileron, Lockin's going Aileron. I am not going to be a crazy person. I'd say you have to go with the Ida or the Hattori here. Ida's probably better because I don't think it's a great Hattori target. If I remember correctly, his only targets here are a single Sage and 2 Mercs, and his Mercs, I think, might have pulled everything already.
Given that this is a Russian tournament, I probably we're going to go with your choice here, because the 2-to-1 democracy in Russia probably isn't exactly the most effective voting reference here. But still, I should probably stop with my Russian jokes now.
So we see here, we do see the Kahir pop out, gets the Calvi, and we have an interesting set of options here, because remember, we have a Vilgefortz ready to pull the top card of the deck as well. So it's interesting what he'll take here. And he elects to go with the Vikavara Medic.
Vikavara Medic to pull a Sage. Sage is such a crazy card.
Oh, this is dirty.
Here we go. Yeah, whenever you get a Sage in Alchemy, it's so dirty. This is like one of my favorite plays. This is so disgusting. I love it. It's pretty funny.
It was nice back in the Slave Infantry days when you could get one a Sage off of whether it was the one strength, I'm blanking the name right now, it's gone already, that created a bronze. So if you got a Sage specifically, there was a lot you could do with that card in this deck, and it's great to see it again here. As we do see, the Vote going to come out pretty quick. We knew we had the Asire on top, and we'll see what he throws back here. He should have... There's no Rich to put back. What do you put back here? Just the ointments? To maybe get an ointment chain?
You'd probably, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You put double ointment back just so you chain novices more efficiently. You're not really afraid of anything that your opponent's doing because you know Hattori can't be a possibility, and you know that your opponent, there's no reason to shuffle back spells with Eithne already being used. I'd like to see a Seer just for double ointment here, unless I'm missing something.
If you're Flake, you're probably putting back like Aileron for your opponent.
Aileron and like a fog.
Like it?
You want to play? I mean,
that would be ballsy.
when points are not what are going to get you to win, sometimes the surprise factor is what's necessary here. But what's interesting is that Yandex has two massive bombs on the board, but he's, with that Swordmaster. So there's one of them. There's two 24-point plays going on right there.
Yeah, and it's hard for any deck to match that. Even with Alchemy traditionally being a deck that can slam point total after point total after point total, he's going to struggle to keep up with these three cards. And we'll see here if that last 24 points can do it. And he does mention the ointment here. I was a little bit worried about whether this because he could hit the recon over the ointment here. He could theoretically miss that card out of 3, but he does manage to hit it here. And he gets to go for another novice here. Getting the ointment chain, we'll see how far down he can take this chain.
Yeah, how sad would Miracle have been if he'd actually just missed the 3 and 4 to find the ointment there and they just sat in his deck? That would have been a bummer. And it's not going to be enough. Yandex's hand is a little bit behind. We apologize, that is a bit out of our control. But we do see the Swordmaster come down. He's up by 9.
Whoa.
The Fog will tick again. He'll be up by 11, but it's not going to matter. Wait, he's going to barely edge this out. This is so close because he didn't find the Ghoul, but it doesn't matter.
Just barely. It's really, really nice, actually, that Danger Fog there was enough, because in the past, with the silver options, you could wind up with some real duds across a lot of matchups, and he just barely gets it. This is, the second or third time we've seen a matchup won by only a point or two this tournament, which is insane. That doesn't normally happen quite that often. It's great to see from a tournament perspective.
Yeah, do you speak from experience on that Black Blood just screwing you over every once in a while? I
can speak from experience with that, and from Telekinesis not giving me ointment. I've had that happen many times before.
So we see Miracle go up 2-1 over Yandex. Okay, Flake, time to get your predictions out. What do you think? Is the sweep happening?
This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Now, if you have any money at all, this is where your money should be put on. And I'm going to be very clear with everybody here that if you own anything, sell it, take all this money, remortgage the house. If you have small children, make sure that you sell them as well, because you want to put all your money right now on the reverse. I don't want to call it the reversal. This is coming back. Yandex is going to actually come back and take this. And this comes from a background for me of both, my father was a psychic and my mother was a professional Gwent player. So with those two elements together, I really am feeling like Yandex is going to come back and take this. So take all my advice and make sure that you listen to absolutely none of it.
All right. Well,
we'll see.
We are getting into the game of Shoop against this Control Eithne list. You heard it here from Flake first. Yandex is going to reverse sweep Miracle. He said it himself. I will hold you to that, Flake. We're going to see, does Yandex have it in him? He surely wouldn't let you down. Miracle's going to do everything in his power here to make sure that doesn't happen, but he doesn't have Yavin in hand, so, he is going to be looking for that.
So I don't know if you caught it, but there's something spicy in Yandex's hand right now, as we can see his hand again. There's a card that we have not seen in a very long time
you are correct. That is a spicy Ithlin in the hand of Yandex. Like you said, not a card we've seen in a while, but used to be a complete shaper of the metagame for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who grew to have a very special hatred for that card. But seeing her again, we'll see whether she's able to live up to her boy here. I doubt that she will quite the same amount of ridiculousness off that she did in the past. But I'm curious to see just how effective it can be in this matchup. As we take a look at the opening plays here, it's interesting that both players are choosing to play out this opening round. Normally, you do see a lot of dry passes from the person who gets blue coin, but Miracle electing instead to just play this round out, which is a really interesting take. And why do you think he's doing that, Luck?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I like the dry pass a lot, actually, in a matchup like this where you know the opponent's hand, where you know they can't punish you in a long round. Shoop notoriously puts out actually a lot of weather. Shoop, I like to joke that Shoop is like a weather deck that you don't really think about, but is actually kind of a weather deck. I mean, in all seriousness. So I'm a little surprised. I would give the edge to Miracle in a long round here, if we're being honest. So I'm surprised to see him play in.
Yeah, it might be because he has that Hattori in hand. I'm not sure. Generally, that's not the only reason why you do it. But I'll be really curious to see whether or not he's able to keep that card or keep that spot where he has enough points to get that card back that he missed there. As we see the Yellow Merc Chain come out, he does play Thunders in his deck. Yandex does. So we were curious about that before, if he did have them. And the Ithlin kind of gives that away a little bit, I think. Yeah. We weren't sure about it before, but Ithlin, traditionally a card that you have to have the targets for, and Thunder is what you'll see it with. So we'll see when he elects to pull that out too, as that's not a common thing to lead one either, as he already has played one of his Thunders. We see the Ada come out here to clear the weather, gets those point buffs back, and it's a great pull here for him because he does actually pull even. And we get the pass for Miracle.
Flake, how you feeling, Flake? How you feel about this pass? You thinking Yandex is, I mean, that's got to be pretty. If you're Miracle, you got to be pretty happy with that pass. You want to play in, you want to make your Hattori active. So you got to be feeling pretty happy. But we see a lot of power sitting in Yandex's hand. What are you thinking here, Flake?
Well, I'm thinking that as soon as that weather got taken away and that attrition for the long round sort of was negated, you kind of have to start to reevaluate and think, do I want to go for a short round 3? How much do I want to be bled over here? So, I mean, that pass was a very cheeky play of saying, all right, you decide. Like, I'm not having any of this. So, put it in Yandex's hand and for Miracle, and now Yandex is thinking, all right, let's rock and roll over here. I've got enough in my hand, enough big plays that this could be. I can win that short round with my Siri or, my buffed up Swordmaster. He's got options that Ithlin, we'll see what she ends up, busting out, but this should make for a pretty interesting finish.
I actually really like this play. I think it's really cute. You go Outlaw into ADC Yavin, and so then the gap is still only 13, so your opponent can't actually spy back and be ahead. It's kind of a cute interaction because you're normally afraid of playing ADC Yavin because it does open your opponent up to then, of course, just play the Yavin back, and now you no longer have the card. But because of the fact that he goes Outlaw into Yavin, the gap is still only 13. So now Yandex is just saying, you know what? Okay, we traded spies. You didn't spy back. I don't think you have it. Let's just trade some cards. I got Siri Nova. I got, I've got an Ithlin Tremors, sorry. Ithlin Thunder. Yeah, a little bit of a flashback. But yeah, I've got Ithlin Thunder. I've got these cards. I don't really think that I need to do anything here, so.
See, I don't know how I feel about this particular play here. I mean, I might even have thought about using that decoy on the Hawker to maybe reboost your... I mean, to me, it just seems like, I guess he really wants to get ahead, but does the point value really matter over here?
Ladies and gentlemen, Flick. So we see here, we actually have a really interesting situation. If looking at Yandex's hand here, as he has what I believe is the second Thunder from his deck in his hand. So this Ithlin, is she out of targets now?
Yeah, I believe right now she is, and that's what we're seeing Yandex rope out here a little bit on his decision. He's deciding, obviously, Thunder, a good card to use when you're bleeding your opponent, but not when it bricks your own Ithlin. He's really deciding, because if he does play this Thunder, he has the forced mulligan on the Ithlin. Ithlin, not a good card when it's only a 2-point gold.
You don't like your glorified cow, basically?
Ooh, I mean, I do have a soft spot for the glorified cow, but unfortunately, not this time, I'm afraid. He actually pulls Ithne.
Yeah, I actually really like this play overall because it lets him invest points in the future round. This is basically going to signify that Thunder is not getting played, and he's going to go with 3 cards in his hand into round 3. It pulls out a card you don't. It's not great to draw. It's okay, but not wonderful. Ithne in this matchup, I don't think is a great card. This isn't why you play Ithne. You play Ithne for the hard counter matchups. In this matchup, you're getting still a 17-point play here. You're totally fine with that. It's not a bad thing for you. So overall, totally fine with it. And we do see the pass coming out here. And we're going to head into the round 3. So overall, again, Yandex's hand, not quite accurate. We'll see it updated here shortly, I believe. And Miracle here joined the March. Oh, that is the perfect mulligan.
That is exactly what he's looking for. That is a good card, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know. And Like Vishra mentioned, Yandex's hand a little bit lagging behind. He did have the forced mulligan onto the Thunder pretty much no matter what he drew, and he did find some good cards. He found Shiru, he found Half Elf Hunter. Half Elf Hunter, just a really solid vanilla card, and it's really important to note here, there are a lot of decks in the metagame these days that don't actually care about who has to go first or second in the final round, but this time it actually is a big deal to have last say, and that ADC on a Yavin is huge. It blocks the Shiru, and it pulls the telekinesis.
And you thought that the Eastern Grim of the ADC Yavin was cute. Well, how about my English Yavin?
Yeah,
As we see him just follow up here with the Half-Elf Hunter, and it looks like we might get the Hattori back here. A nice thing about Tim Miracle's hand here is the flexibility that he has with it because of that Hattori and the decoy and the Shoop. We could see a triple decoy here on Hattori, or a double decoy if you wanted to, in this round 3 because of the Shoop option off of Hunter. So it's really curious to see what that Shoop comes down as and just how much value he can elicit out of this Hattori or even the Barclay.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right, is we don't actually know how many dwarves are still left in Miracle's deck, but the thing is, oftentimes with Barclay, or just when it comes to like decoy, you can decoy Barclay and it's a phenomenal play. But if not, you can decoy Hattori and it's a phenomenal play. You can res Half Elf Hunter. We see the Hattori was a 4. He could have resed Ida if he'd valued that in a longer round. That's what's so good about Hattori, and then the decoy interaction as well, is that you have so many options, and Miracle must not have another dwarf in his deck because he's actually electing to decoy Hattori here.
I love this play personally. I think that the value you get out of the Ida here with is going to be great. It stops any other kind of shenanigans from that Swordmaster coming down and doing more work if you care about it. And it gets a lot of value out that way. It also means that your Shoop is kind of free up to do whatever you want with it here. But look at the point value. Yandex is up by a point down, but this Shiru is just awful here. And it's only a 7-point play here. So even with that Ithlin and the Siri Nova hand, it'll be interesting to keep up with the just pure firepower of Tim Miracle's hand with the Triss, the Shiru, and the Shoop left in his hand. So options here for Triss.
He didn't set up for the Mahakamail, a little punished actually. He's going to have to go for the Mardrome instead. Not too big of a deal, but I like what he's doing here, and I like that he played around that Shiru. A lot of players might have gotten a little impatient and pulled the trigger on the Shiru instantly on the 15 Yavin, but Miracle held it for a bit and knew he would get more, and yeah, he's just going to get rewarded.
Oh, this is painful. As you see, the Shiru gets slammed here.
Yeah, this game is over, ladies and gentlemen. Ithlin Thunder not gonna be enough, especially with that Yavin. Any Yavin option, or I mean, sorry, any Shoop option will be enough here. That is a win for Tim Miracle.
Now, hold on a second. Let's just get a little bit of suspense here because the Russian connections of towards the internet could be a factor here. There's always a rogue element to these tournaments, and nope, I was wrong.
Oh, the rogue element almost got him there, though. You never know when the plug is going to get pulled. Flake is right, of course. We never know what's going to happen, but that is going to be Miracle taking a 3-1 over Yandex, advancing to the finals against Son of Flame. A phenomenal series, honestly, played from both sides. What do you guys think about the lineups here as we see overall? Just, you know, a lot of interesting stuff, but Miracle's lineup just got there.
Miracle won.
Yeah, sorry. Miracle's lineup just got there.
I had you convinced so much that he's gonna come back and win that you're just said screw it. Flake has final say on this.
Flake is right. I'm wrong. Of course, I just couldn't resist. Your natural charm won me over.
I'm saying I told you I am the product of a professional Gwent player and Tailbot? A palm reader. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Tailbot's my dad. That's another thing.
That's what we learned today.
I know. I just never inherited that amazing hair of his. But yeah, so the winner of this series was Tim Miracle, who's going to be taking on Son of Flame. And in that matchup, Vish, I mean, just your thoughts on the lineup going into the next matchup. I mean, is this a strong lineup? Is Shoop just going to be unstoppable? Give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so actually, we were told by the RuGwent Open tournament admins that these are both past champions. So Tim Miracle and Son of Flame have both won previous RuGwent Opens before. So these are two people who know the situation they're in. They brought lineups, they're prepared for this overall. Looking at their lineups, we have the double Croc. Both of these are that control Croc deck that isn't very popular, but might be after this tournament, given how well it's performed. We see full test out of Tim Miracle along with Calvi and Groover. And then on the side of Son of Flame, we have Ithne, Calvi, and Dagon. So overall, looking at these decks, not that much shared overall. I believe that they both are. We didn't see Calvi actually out of Son of Flame the first time around, so we're still not sure quite what his deck is. We know it's not going to be deck on the side of Miracle. We don't know what his full test deck is. It looks like we will get to see it here though, as the Groover and Ithne are banned. So there's no square total match going in here in round 3, or into the final game, excuse me. And we'll see Full Test and Dagon as the odd men out here. We see what might be matched up Calvi, might be matched up Croc. We already know they are matched up.
And we're going to be really interested in seeing what this Full Test deck is, and I think that a lot of people are really intrigued by it because it hasn't had really any exposure from any of the competitors. Actually, Northern Realms didn't really make much of an appearance at all. So it's going to be a nice little change of flavor for us over here on the casting side to be able to cast a Northern Realms element to this tournament. So, I mean, just your initial impressions. I mean, there's so many ways that Full Test can go. You can throw some machines on there, add a swarm element. You know, you can actually just come out of nowhere and just, just play some kind of weird janky stuff to throw your opponent off.
That's what it's going to be. It's going to be Reaver Hunter Full Test. You heard it here first from Flake.
So apparently I'm the one who made this prediction, and I'll stick by it. It's going to be Reaver Hunters. We'll just say, I mean, we are not getting any tips on what the actual deck lists look like beyond the leaders. So we're kind of playing the same guessing game that you are on the viewership side. But if you were to put money down on one particular archetype for this Full Test, and I don't want me to throw all the interest and attention on this one leader, but I mean, this is the one biggest mystery going in because we've pretty much seen what the other lists are and what they're bringing. So, Locke, what are you thinking this Full Test is going to look like?
I'm thinking Temeria, personally. I think we'll see a lot of just, Blue Stripe Scouts, Commandos, Temerian Infantrymen, Stennis, those kind of standard cards. Battering Rams, just because they're just very well statted bronzes. They give a little bit of removal flexibility. And then oftentimes what will happen is when you run Temeria, you'll have about 2 or 3 bronzes open. Some people like to go Trebuchet because they don't like giving their opponent any sort of target, just the Trebuchet that hits 3 things. Some people will go Siege Tower. I personally am not a fan of the Siege Tower myself, but I know it is an option that some people like to run. And that's kind of what I expect to see. Obviously, you have options that, in my opinion, are a bit weaker, like you have Soldier Swarm, or you have a Machine variant. But typically, Machines still finds its home with Hinsel, in my opinion. So I think, for the most part, if I had to put money on it, I would say I'm expecting to see Temeria Northern Realms come out here.
And I like the thought you made about the siege towers, mainly because if you're going against an alchemy opponent, those tall siege towers usually often give those witchers full value, which is not necessarily what you want. You want a little bit of interaction from your machines, so it's a good point over there. Vish, what do you think that this Full Test is going to look like?
40 card Full Test. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's roll
go.
it.
I'm not going to call shoot, because I'm not going to be that crazy, but I want to see 40 card Full Test. I want to see it again. It's been a long time since we've seen it in any kind of tournament. I want to see it come out. Realistically, I think it's probably the Temerian Full Test list. I want fun here.
I mean, it would definitely be nice to see a nice 40 card Full Test. And for me, from my side, my vindication would be when he completely, low rolls his entire hand and gets bricked all the way back to Temeria. But the fact remains is that I'm not the one playing, so other people have the non-flake luck factors going in. So this could actually be a pretty viable deck if they bring 40 card Full Test and can actually draw fairly well, but that's
39 spells, case. All spells, 40 card Full Test, just all spells, huge Burt, just the greatest of combos. I want to see it myself, actually.
It would be great. I mean, 39 spells, just dropping that Full Test, getting full value from Full Test, beefing up those special cards in your hand to no value. I mean, that would be fantastic. That would be
now. What do you two think about the option of maybe being an armor deck? Because we have seen armor. There's a lot of things with Littlems overall that float around because it's generally considered one of the weaker factions overall across Glint. So there's a lot that actually goes around in that faction people aren't aware of. And one of those is that armor has been a deck that it might not be top tier, but it has made waves in the past. So do you think there's any chance it could be an armor deck?
I'm a little hesitant to put it on armor, just because I think, like you mentioned, armor is a little bit weaker. One of the upsides is that overall we see when you play something like armor, you are going a bit more controlling with it because you can sort of run like armor and then run something like cure mets and some like death mold options, some things that let you remove what swords is doing. But we've seen actually full test players adapt even in Temeria and start to run cards like Margarita, Death Mold, and Cura just all the time, and even Temeria. And I think the Temeria package is just so much better than armor actually, because it gives you so much more explosiveness and thinning options. I would be really surprised to see it. Like you said, I don't think we can rule it out, but I would be really surprised for a player to bring armor over something like just a vanilla Temeria list.
I'd be very hesitant to think that this is an armor build, mainly because there's so many better options I'd find for armor than this. And or I mean, if you're going down the list of what full test is best at, if you're taking something into a tournament, you don't want to kind of, this isn't the point where you want to roll the dice on particular options, like trying to surprise people. I mean, armor, yeah, maybe, sure. Like, is it really better off than, let's say, playing Radovid for a control element, especially since you're going to
Omega Wolf.
but playing these other other options. I would love to see a 40 card full test, but I'm just, as soon as one of them queues it, or as soon as that full test is queued, and all our answers are going to be put to light. But in the meantime, it's just fun to speculate. But we shouldn't just reside on full test. We've seen, the both lineups. So Miracle bringing in Kraken Krite, full test, and Calvate. He's going to be met at the on the battlefield by Son of Flame, who's also bringing a Krak, also bringing a Calvate and a Dagon. Now, I hope that this isn't going to just be mirror after mirror. But I mean, what's the most intriguing matchup here that you guys are seeing? What two leaders going head to head might either give the closest matchup, or which one is just completely outclassed?
So what's interesting is I can't actually recall. I know that, if I'm not mistaken, Miracle brought Control Skellige, the archetype we've been seeing a bit more. I don't remember what actual Skellige deck Son of Flame brought himself. I want to say Veterans, but I can't remember. And that's going to be a really big deal, is what matchup does this Control Skellige deck find? Does it find a matchup where it can remove a lot of value, or does it find something that is just vanilla points? And we're going to get our questions answered as we get right into this one, and we are starting with a Moonlight Dagon deck that we saw last time against the Control Skellige.
I'm happy about this because I can see Moonlight again, so wonderful for me. Overall, we do see that both the Squirtle decks are banned out, like we said before. Tim Miracle opening with a fairly decent hand here. Overall, he does have that Vid Renew opener as well as the Restore, so it might be a little bit tricky here for his first hand, as we do see him finishing resolving the mulligans, getting rid of one of those Corsairs, actually both of them out of his hand, and a much nicer hand here after that's resolved. On the side of Son of Flame, we do see him with the triple Siren and triple Alpha Werewolf hand, which is great for him. So both these players getting really nice openers, I think.
Yeah, I actually love, even though in my opinion, Demon Pirate might be a bit of a captain, might be a bit of a too strong of a card. I love that this sort of just thing exists where you can just go Pirate Captain into Pirate for like 3 thinning to find your golds more consistently, just kind of like a 12-point play. I think it's a really kind of cool play to see. So I love that we're just seeing cards like, Captain that have kind of been resolved to just always pulling light long ships for so long. see people adapt and run warships and run just the Demon Pirates. So I think it's really interesting to see. But a big deal here actually I think coin flip is a really big deal in this matchup for Son of Flame, because it determines whether or not he's the one being pressured, because I think Moonlight can't really afford to set up if it's on blue coin nearly as well as if it's on red. So I think it is a pretty big deal here actually for Son of Flame to be on red coin.
Yeah, I actually think this is a really good, interesting matchup overall, and it's probably the one I want to see the most out of any of these. Moonlight deck would stack up against this deck. One big piece of this that we haven't gotten to talk about that's going to be super relevant in this specific matchup is that Werewolf on Son of Flame side, that thing can't be targeted. It has the wonderful little tag that only it and Arrakis Queen have, where it cannot be targeted by any of your opponent's abilities or spells. So that thing can get out of hand very quickly, and all of those whalers, all of those longships and everything can do absolutely nothing to it. So we'll see just how relevant that is here. from Son of Flame, and if he can get those buffs on it from the Sirens and the Moonlights, it could actually be a really big deal going forward here against a super control-heavy deck from Tin Miracle.
Yeah, agreed. Looking towards this now, Flake, what are you wanting to see here from Son of Flame? Do you want to see him get this passive value going, or do you want to see him try to be aggressive with the Dagon here and put the fog on his opponent? He kind of has to decide. He doesn't really have a choice. He's going to have to get passive value going, but do you want to see him go for the offensive one or the one where he buffs his own guys?
Well, the big issue here is that he doesn't really have a play that can pull him ahead other than this play right here. When he plays the Moonlight on his side here, it does buff that werewolf by 7, so he's going to pull up just to even right here with this play. And the issue here is that because of how far down he kind of got in that round, he has to just okay, he's going to go with the pass back. He had either play a card in or pass there. And he's going to have to take this directly to a round 2 where he is on the play here. So Tin Miracle there managed to actually get far enough ahead where he's going to gain basically a half card advantage back for no extra cost on his side. And we'll see what winds up here. And if each of these players can craft a hand here, that'll be useful in round 3 because each of them do have dead cards here.
Yeah, but I'm really nervous about Tin Miracle. He doesn't have Birna. Birna, a really good card, I think, in this matchup for at least denying one of the Moonlights. We see that he has a dead Renew. I'm not sure if this is the play. I gotta be honest, I'm a little hesitant going into this long of a round with a Moonlight player that hasn't really commit any of its Moonlight and, is only committing like Dagon, or hasn't even committed Dagon, I should say. I'm a little concerned for Tin Miracle.
Oh no. Now I can't recall specifically. I think that there might be 2 targets for the Power Captain and the Graveyard, which the Restore and the Corsair can handle. But in general, that's not what you want to be doing with this deck in this matchup. And you can see already right here that Werewolf having Immune is going to be a huge issue here, as he can't clear out that Moonlight that's going to get buffed here over and over again. You see him just instantly be able to slam it down and make sure he gets points in Moonlight every turn to guarantee that extra weather effect proccing. And like you said, this could be an issue for Miracle. He has multiple dead cards in hand here that aren't going to do much for him here. So we're kind of seeing how the specifics behind the Moonlight deck here might actually be a huge deal for Son of Flame going forward.
Yeah, and I'm just not seeing it. I mean, obviously Miracle saw the chance to get his card back and he took it, but I'm not sure if that's really I think, you always have to reevaluate and evaluate what exactly you're doing. What exactly you're doing in every matchup, I think, is a little bit different when you play a control deck. And I think passing to potentially get half a card that early in the round is maybe the wrong win condition. Against another deck, I think it's fine. But against Moonlight, I think you're better off trying to go a card down into a hyper short round with cards like Restore and Renew, rather than trying to do stuff with, a half card advantage. I mean, he's already down by so much, and Son of Flame's barely even gotten the passive, game going, really.
So let's talk about what he can do and what could work out well for him here, okay? So what we do know is that I'd expect that he thought that he would have gotten a card out of Son of Flame. I don't think he expected to pass back there. But on his side, he still has some kind of powerful cards here with the Whalers, with the Coral, with the Longship, with the Restore and a Power Captain that can either fetch a Corsair for res, or it can also be used to pull a card from his deck if he has a machine left in his deck, which should, I believe, be one Longship maybe. If not, he has 2 Corsair targets. So either way, there's gonna be enough there for him to be able to work. Overall, he has to be able to play around those alpha werewolves, and he needs to make sure that he gives Son of Flame as few options to basically gain passive points as he can. An issue here is that he can't really play out of the weather here with how he's lined his board up. He's going to get punished here for that he played directly into the weather there as the bottom half comes down, and it's going to take out more points on him. So we'll see. He still has some cards here that can be really, really powerful. It's just the fact that Renew isn't going to do anything from this game unless he can get say the Coral into the weather and have it die in time. And he's not going to find the value he normally wants to, thanks to that immune ability on the werewolf.
Is there any particular moment in this round, perhaps, like you saw him kind of tickle the pass button there and just kind of concede the game? I mean, at what point do you just reevaluate and say, I'm never going to win this? It's more valuable for me to preserve the mystery of what cards I'm playing in this deck than it is to sort of, give it your best effort. Even if you have a 1% chance, do you try to roll the dice on that, or do you preserve the mystery of what cards you're holding and what your decks consists of, and try to, surprise in later rounds?
So for me, if I think I have that moment, the moment I took that pass in round 1 with 9 cards against Moonlight and no Moonlights played. I gotta say, like, I think this is just a really interesting game to go back and look at for Miracle, because I would love to know what he was like, thinking, like, because obviously, when you make a pass like that, you have a game plan. You say, okay, this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, and because you evaluate what's gonna happen, and then your game plan in regards to that. So I would, love to, hear what he was thinking on this pass, because I think he's just not going to have enough points. And like you mentioned, Flake, I wonder at what point you do just decide to hide what you're running. It should be known, though, I believe these players may have faced in Swiss, or the deck lists might be semi-common. So we could see potentially their list already being known, and maybe he's going to say, you know what, maybe I only have a 1% chance, but God damn it, I am going down with the ship on this one.
Valiant words over there. Then again, he might actually just have dinner plans at some point, and he needs to get the hell out of there as soon as. But I mean, that's the one thing that you're absolutely right about. If the deck list is known, there's no point in just conceding, because all the information is available to all the players. So you sort of just trudge along and see what you can get, and maybe even learn what from your opponent's string of plays, or their play style, or what you can sort of make of it, and then perhaps attack later. For instance, the opponent preserving the Moonlights for the last round or longer rounds, and you kind of learn what their behavior's like and their habits. But in this case, it seems like there's absolutely no coming back from it. It looks like a very, very difficult position for Tin Miracle, and there's no way he's going to come back from this, especially with that immune unit. I mean, there's 2 of them that are on the board representing a crap ton of points and absolutely no way to interact with them.
Yeah, and I don't hate playing into this if I'm Team Miracle, just because I assume that the Rush community, like I said earlier, is very tight overall, and I expect that since they both brought this deck, they both were aware of the deck list, and I expect them both to basically be playing the same list. I think from what we've seen so far, it is a mirrored list. It's fine at this point because you didn't show him what golds you're playing. The bronze pack should remain the same overall, but overall, like, I don't think he's going to lose anything by playing cards out there. So I'm okay trying to see if you have it, and just if your opponent might have a brick hand with like dead sirens or full moons or something. I don't know.
So,
but
do you come back with Crack against a potential full tester Calvate deck now? Or sorry, my apologies.
It'll be the Moonlight again. So overall, we have the Croc, we have the Moonlight out of the way here. You have the Croc coming back. I think that overall the Croc deck should be decent against the remaining 2 decks. I think that Moonlight deck is as hard of a counter as you can probably get in that specific scenario. He was lined up in a way such that he had to deal with basically a full board of weather no matter what he did there, because of how he played round 1 and because of that pass. I don't know that I'd say he's favored in those 3 remaining matchups, because I don't remember. We don't know what the full test list is, and I can see Alchemy kind of getting the player around that if they play the board right, and if they don't get kind of blown up by the Coral Renew combo. I don't mind. I personally have the opinion that if I'm going to play a deck, I'm going to roll it back again and get that win with it, unless I have a guaranteed matchup somewhere else in my lineup. And I think that the Croc deck is favored against both these, either even or slightly favored, depending on how you see it, the Alchemy matchup. So I'd probably roll it back if I was saying.
The Alchemy matchup, something to watch for is Birna, actually. Birna's a card we haven't seen them draw too often, but I think if you can get Birna off and then even renew Birna, I think that makes the Alchemy matchup quite good. And it is actually Temeria full test, and we see the Siege Towers I mentioned earlier in the hand. A pretty okay hand for the Alchemy player and a pretty bad one for the Northern Realms player, but he does manage to fix it, and it's looking okay now.
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen an Alchemy player, I think, have a good hand overall. With Alchemy hands we've seen before this have been poor. Oh, baby, is that a Swears? Sorry for my thought there. This is... people are playing tech decks today.
I thought the same thing when I saw that. I thought, wow, that is a Swears, and this is 2018. What's going on? Flake, help me out here.
Well, in this case, this is the Swears that's going to whiff big time. That was a really, really tight mulligan that actually saved him over here, grabbing all of those scouts out. Look at that. That Swears is a swing and a miss.
Oh, no, he took the commando. That's actually really smart, I think. Okay, so Son of Flame looks at this and he decides, okay, if I target the scout, I have the potential to brick him for a lot of points. But if I target the commandos, I know that I will remove his points, and I can't really miss. So he actually goes for the safer play and is heavily rewarded. That is a 200 IQ play right there.
That I don't think it can be overstated just how good that play that he just did there was. That might be like that's like game-winning plays
Exactly.
right there. What he just did there. That's not something that can be overstated from us. How much that'll matter for this match going forward. The other big thing here, as we see Tin Miracle go ahead and play the full test out, buff everything in his hand, the board and his deck, is we see the triple Viper Witcher out of Son of Flame. And this deck is good when it only gets one. It is amazing when it gets all 3 Viper Witchers because it gets all the reses off all of the alchemies over all 3 rounds here. So we're seeing Son of Flame here firing on all cylinders. He's making the correct choices here too with his cards. And he's set up fantastic so far in this round. As we see, I don't know, would you call this a good pool here? Generally, it's a good pool because it puts him ahead here from Tim Miracle's side, but that's a really big resource that generally is saved for round 3 with those infantrymen.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, normally it's an okay pull, but I think in other matchups it's better than here because I think against Alchemy, because they have so many dead cards by nature, you are always going to be able to win round 1 anyway. So I'm not entirely convinced that that's the pull he was looking for. And we see here now, Son of Flame gets the pass anyway, so the Temerians don't even give him the win on even. So I have to agree with you, Vishra. This is not what he wanted to pull off that Stennis. He's lacking some points a little bit.
Yeah, and losing all of those Temerian not the commandos, the
infantry
scouts.
The scouts, yeah.
Yeah, having them killed here is actually huge because he would have been able to make the points up if those scouts had lived. A little bit, like he would have been much closer than if the scouts had lived because he loses those crewman buffs. So actually having them gone is also a very big deal overall. As we see the mulligans come out here, we see the Margarita come out of Tin Miracle. And that's also a card that, again, we keep seeing all these tech options. That's one that has not been popular for quite a long time and is seen a play here out of Tin Miracle's deck.
Yeah, and he plays Dandelion Poet Ronvid, not typically cards you see a lot in the standard full test list. Usually Temeria doesn't value Ronvid high enough. Obviously, machine synergy is pretty decent, but oftentimes Temeria wants to be playing its machines in round 1, where you have cards like Full Test and Commandos. So typically Ronvid, not a card we see played in all of them. It is sometimes seen, it's not always seen, but Dandelion Poet jumps out to me because Northern Realms has such good golds by nature. I'm actually really surprised to see the Poet. What do you guys think about this one?
Overall, so I like the Ronvid first off because, again, you're playing the Siege Towers and you're playing the Battering Rams. I think if you're playing just one of those two and you're looking for the other bronze options that this deck can play, I don't think Ronvid fits. If you're playing 6 machines, I like it overall. I think it's fine for that silver slot. The Dandelion, like you said, there's a lot you can play in this deck. There's Dijkstra, there's Triss, there's Kira
Shani,
Ness.
Selkirk, Kira, yeah.
The list goes on and on. So seeing Dandelion here means that he wants a very high burst potential. Something like Dandelion into Temerian Infantryman is a really good combo here. So it's just interesting that, like you said, that you would put it in. And I don't think it's a standard pick, but it's worked for him so far. From Son of Flame side, though, we did just see him put back one of those infantrymen into Tin Miracle's deck to try to break his draws later. I don't hate this play. I think it's a really good use of an Asire in a matchup where Asire traditionally is not a very strong card.
Agreed, and I think Asir is a really big deal in this matchup because sometimes, you can get the big Dijkstras off where otherwise Asir says, okay, you're going to try to get that big Dijkstra off. I don't think so. And it's a really big deal. And we see that even though Tin Miracle is a couple cards down, he's a lot of points up. These Viper Witchers, though, are just such a big deal, like you mentioned earlier, Vish. Just getting them all down in round 1 is huge for a deck like this.
Yeah, especially when you look at something like the Asire that can shuffle the Ointments back in. Triss Marigold makes Enlightenment. So the more that you play in round 1, the more you can play. This deck can potentially play all of them. Upwards of, I think it's 7 times is about the max you can usually expect to get out of the deck with it, but there's still 7 of them that you can get because you can you can res them, the 3 base off the Ointments, you can put 2 back off of Asire, and you can make 1 off of Triss. Plus, you might be able to win it a little bit otherwise. So you can get all those reses across all 3 rounds if you play it right. So it really unlocks the power of this deck. And we see here that even with that, having access to multiple novices here, that it wasn't enough for him to catch up here, and Son of Flame's going to be forced out of an extra card here more than he would have wanted to be in this round.
Agreed. All right, Flake, I got a question for you because you got to let me know. If you're Tin Miracle, you're a little bummed out. The Asirs bricked your hand a little bit and your future draws. Your hand's not looking too spicy. You're not sitting on any golds. What are you looking for here? What's your winning condition? What do you need? Are you praying to DJ?
I'm probably looking for something along the lines of maybe an 18-year-old Scotch, maybe trying to ease the pain a little bit, put out those depressive fires that are burning in my loins. But it's definitely a difficult position to be in because something like Alchemy can really hurt you late game. There's so many options for it, and again, like Full Test is just, it's not exactly a fantastic card. What are you really locking on the opponent's side? I mean, Margarita is going to reset something maybe, but what are you getting the value from? Particularly, from this. So we'll see how it plays out, but it doesn't look too good for Tin Miracle.
I'm sorry, was that a Nilfgaardian Knight that we just saw of Son of Flame?
I did actually see one of those.
We did actually see one, and we're just seeing his hand is just not that fantastic here. Margarita is a 17-point card, so not really. She's going to come down for some good value, but all the other cards in his hand are just going to be undervalued compared to what Son of Flame is playing here for the most part. Vanamar, not the greatest card, so that could be the potential problem that he needs, the potential savior that he needs, but overall, I'm not really thinking it's going to be enough. He elects to go for the Frost to deny the crewman on Ronvid. Interestingly enough, I think I might have liked to have seen him go for the Vilgefortz onto the Vesemir. The upside with that is it doesn't give your opponent a battering ram target if you do it that way, and your opponent is left with no ability to double hit. I think that would have been a pretty good play to see come down. Son of Flame decides otherwise and elects to go ahead and play the Vanamar, and we see that the ram does punish him and he gets double hit there.
Yeah, great play overall from Miracle there. Electing this, he still sees that line overall. This isn't going to work out great for him because he just gave his opponent that fine Vilgefortz target. And we do see the Nilf Knight there. As Tin Miracle can go ahead and here, he has full access to all information here. We'll see if he has enough damage here overall to be able to take this out as he does get that Thunder off. A big thing here is going to be that Margarita, though. She is going to be a 21-point play after this. So this would actually be a really, really close situation as we see what they can do here.
Unless I missed a pushed change to the game, and Margarita does not spawn Scorch, but this is closer than we thought it might be.
And you see it come down to a single point. If that Ronvid had gone on Siege a single time, if it had come back that first time and gone Siege, it would have been enough to change this game. And we see by a single point here, Son of Flame able to pull this out.
Yeah,
and that was
close.
A game.
Yeah, that one was really, really close actually. Okay, so now we see Son of Flame. He's up 2-0. Miracle, his back is against the wall, but you know what? He thrives under pressure. He's a madman. He knows exactly what he needs to do to win. So I gotta ask you, Flake, is it happening? Can it happen? Can the reverse sweep come in? Let me hear it.
Now, I know for a fact that last time I told you, go ahead, sell your children, take that money.
I did it all.
Let it ride. And now what has come
I have nothing left.
Well, that's the beauty of it, because
I'm
now
out of this apartment tomorrow.
Sell yourself and believe in the heart of Tin Miracle, because I mean the name, it's in his name. Miracle is in his name. So do you believe in miracles? I certainly don't, but I'm sure that for the sake of the spiciness of this match and to actually keep the hype up, I'm going to say that Tin Miracle's coming back of this one. 3-0. It's happening.
All right, Vish, we see it here. We see Tin Miracle's got the Temeria Northern Realms lined up against the Control Skellige. So now that you see this matchup, do you think Miracle can take it here? Can he pull off the reverse sweep? What's your prediction here?
I think this matchup is going to be a really interesting one. This is the matchup that I was unsure how it would work out overall, the Croc against the Fall Test. On the one hand, you have this very control-heavy oriented deck with all this. It's going to kill off all of these scouts right away. On the other hand, you have a deck that really has a lot of redundancy put into it with things like the reinforcement, like the Reaver Scouts, etc. So I'm actually really curious to see how this pans out. And we see a pretty solid starting from both players, as we do see that even with the removal of Miracles able to find the next scout. But we do again see all the removal out of Son of Flame here with first the Longship and then a Champion of Hoth here. So this is just both these players kind of playing out their game plan so far.
Agreed, and we see the Byrna come down. Thankfully for Miracle, he does have the Death Mold to answer. Death Mold, obviously a pretty good card into Byrna. The only downside being that because those commandos are boosted, they do not receive the boost from the Clear Skies, so a bit of a bummer. But for now, Son of Flame is just trying to keep even and just stay ahead while he's on even cards. Because he won the coin flip, he's not that threatened. So overall, I think, pretty good stuff so far from Son of Flame, and Miracle's just playing his hand out, trying to set himself up in a position where he can just get his card out and then out of the round.
Yeah, if I'm Son of Flame here, I have to be happy with how this has worked out so far. You managed to get a row with triple commando on it, so you have that instant burn a hit. You get to make the death mold be worth not that much overall. You basically played your game plan and it's worked out very well. When Tin Miracle's side, it's a little bit rougher. You did have that response for that first scout dying, but the second one, you really wanted not to die, so that marching orders would hit your third scout off of the Reaver scout. So far, it's not quite where you want it, but it's okay because he has a lot of options left in hand, a lot of points left in his hand. We see him just barely keeping up so far, and I'm curious just how deep he'll take this. It's really rough for him here because he's down a card since he did go first in the play, and he's not really keeping up. He's not keeping ahead. He's just barely keeping up with Son of Flame. So he needs to either commit something here that'll make him enough points to basically be able to force Son of Flame out, or he needs to basically be able to willing to give this round up when even, which is not something you ever want to do with this deck, or in general.
Yeah. So Miracle's option right now is looking to do Battering Ram and then try to go with the Battering Ram after the play. You go Ram or you go Marching Orders into a Reaver Scout to pull your other Battering Ram. That is the only target that the Scout can actually be used on, and he does want that out of his deck. A key point here, though, is Stennis is not something that Miracle is going to be able to play, so Shawnee doesn't have the option to res that. So, Flake, if you're Miracle, you can't res the Stennis. What are you resing? Are you taking Death Mold? Are you taking Battering Ram, Siege Tower? What are you doing?
I mean, it depends on the scenario here. Death Mold seems to have just enough punch to just drop and get a point. I mean, if it's difficult, usually Stennis is the is Shani's best friend in these scenarios. You get it there, you get a nice string, especially in a nice thinned out 40 card deck or whatever the hell's going on in this case, but you know what I mean? It's a tough choice, but I mean, you can't go wrong in either given the circumstances. You're just going to have to figure out what gives you the most points in these scenarios. I mean, you're not playing something that's looking to kill any particular unit. There's no engine pieces on the board you're looking to remove. So it's going to come down to whatever gives you the best point value, frankly. I mean, there's no targets of significance, frankly, that you want to remove.
Yeah, and I think Miracle might be saved actually by the fact that Son of Flame has a Renew and an Udalric in hand. It might save him. Something to know is, I believe these players must know deck lists, because if not, Miracle is so unafraid of Igni right now. He is a man of just steel if he doesn't know that his opponent doesn't run the Igni.
I just see Udalric come out here, and I'm curious what the choices are on the side of Son of Flame here. You figure if he has any kind of strong interaction, you can slam it right away. But overall, this is going to be an interesting board state because he should be able to take this back with that last Willer in his hand, pulling the Udalric to the melee row. Is Tin Miracle going to pass, or is he going to commit a card and go down 2 cards here to win the first round?
I think you have to pass if you're Miracle and just hope Flame can't do this in 1. I think that there's no way you win this game if you have to go 2 down. So I think if I am Miracle, I think I say, you know what? If you got me, you got me, I pass. And it isn't enough, so he is going to just be able to give a huge sigh of relief here.
Yeah, just barely able to here. I'm wondering if Son of Flame thought he had it in that 1 card. I'm not sure if he did or not, but he's going to go down a card here to win it, so he just get that flip back on his side. But overall, it's not a bad situation, I don't think, for him, as he still has the Renew in hand for the burnout for later. And he gets to basically get out of this round and basically get that last say in round 3.
Yeah, and it's going to be pretty close, honestly. We see both players have the gold that they're looking for. But notably, that was the card I wanted to actually mention, was we actually saw Miracle. He got to keep those infantrymen, and that's huge. Ooh. And if Son of Flame passes here, which he certainly will, Miracle can actually dump off the Scout if he wants. For the buff.
He put the infantryman back, which is actually super interesting. He doesn't have Shawnee. He doesn't have Stennis in his graveyard. How is he going to pull it out here right now? I'm really curious what he's going to do here, because as far as I'm aware, he doesn't have anything that actually guarantees it. Stennis should hit it in theory.
He's going to high roll the DJ, Vishra. You just got to believe. He knew he would top deck DJ into infantryman for the perfect top deck, so he mulliganed him back.
Well, actually, this is the perfect draw for him now, because that means that DJ can, because what it does is it pulls both cards out and then plays them. DJ could theoretically hit 2 infantrymen. Exactly. So him drawing that infantryman there is actually the stone nut for him, as he now has the perfect setup for this round 3. And looking on Son of Flame side, he has the decoy, which is really nice here because it lets him get that Pirate Captain rebuy. He has the Corsair, so he can res 3 of his ships here. And we'll see what that him wants to do. Him is kind of the wild card here, and then it's going to most likely copy an opponent's card here. The Champion of Hob has already been used, so we're not going to see it come back. he could play Sigdrifa, I guess, to get the champion back, because it is a clan card, correct?
Agreed. So it is a clan card, so it would be okay. So we see that the DJ comes down for a battering ram and a Ronvid. He didn't quite find the golds he was looking for, so not fantastic, but I expect to see Stennis come down here. I don't believe there's anything too bad it can hit, and it would just be, 3 plus a random card. So he's gonna go for it. Let's see if this pulls him anything too bad. I think this is exactly what he wants. He forfeits, actually. Okay, we'll never know.
Well then.
We will
okay
never.
Then. So that was not a good Stennis hit, apparently.
Yeah.
And with that, that's a 2-1 so far.
Now I don't want to.
Pull the win out there.
I don't want to speak to my own predictions here, but I did tell you to.
That's one.
Sell the farm, ladies and gentlemen. And if you don't have a farm, acquire one and then sell it, because it's gonna happen. Tin Miracle is gonna come back and take this. He still needs two. He still needs two. That's fine.
2 is still better than 1, Flake.
Two is a significant, amount of games to win, but you start with 1 and then you make your way, and it's simple. I mean, you've been there, you've been in those seats. Vish, Lockin, both of you are fresh out of the from Wild Hunt tournament just not too long ago, and I want to know your thoughts when you're coming into these tournaments where you have what you're going to be faced. It's not like you're queuing into random opponents. You know what the leaders are that are going to come up and face you. Are there any strategies in terms of what you're playing first? Do you play your best deck first? Do you play your sort of teched counter-ish type decks first? How does that work?
I think that for that first one, you play what you think can get you a win, so you get that feeling back. And we're going to see here, I think we're going to get ready to dive back into it if we haven't already. We see the Croc into the Alchemy here. So he got that one, that first deck that he felt really comfortable with that full test deck. It turns out it was a good matchup overall. He just put out too many points for the Croc deck to be able to handle. Now we kind of get in the nitty gritty of it. We get into the deck that you think, I should be able to win with this. I'm not guaranteed with it, but it should be a decent matchup. You basically, in my opinion, you play your best deck, and then you play the next best one after that to kind of get some momentum playing. So he should feel pretty confident with his Alchemy deck, and I think that on paper, at least, it should line up well. We see his hand as a triple Viper Witcher here, and we see one come out immediately to just kind of start those points going on the board. This looks like a good hand overall for the situation, I think. Lockin, what are you looking at for the rest of this match? Where do you think both these players want to be maneuvering this round one to set up for the future rounds?
So something that Miracle does have going for him is, like you mentioned, he's probably pretty happy with his hand. He's got the triple Viper Witcher, he's got the Guardian, he's got the Mandrake, he's got the ability to force these Whale Harpooners out and then open up his ointments. So if he wants, he actually does have effectively all of his cards enabled for now, because that Skellige deck does have to kill stuff. So I'm looking for, if I'm Son of Flame, I'm looking for what I can do to mess with my opponent that doesn't outright kill things. And I'm looking for mad tempo quickly, because I know that this Alchemy deck's tempo is pretty limited to like 15 or 12 at a time. So I'm looking to punish him, and this is exactly what I'm thinking here. Is this is a punish where if your opponent doesn't have Cantarella, you might force their pass.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. The answer is always mad tempo. So we see here, the Uruk does come out. We don't get the, I believe that we missed the other discard. I didn't quite catch it. But we do see...
I believe it was a warship, unless I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that.
So that's a great discard for him because he doesn't really care about that. The ones he cares about is Clandom and Corsair, because Corsair actually removes itself from the game, so you can't use it. That's one you really need to keep if you can, but any machine is fine because of the interaction with the Pirate Captain with Corsairs means that they're basically just right in your hand anyway. And it actually sets up a really interesting play where Tin Miracle was now behind, even though he was on the play because of that spy, and we see him hit the Vic of Aromatic here, which he knew was on top of his deck thanks to that Calvi. Knew he had it set up here, and we'll see him probably just take that Willer right away and deny it from Son of Flame now. Or sorry, Longship, not Willer.
Yeah, and now what we're seeing is Miracle decides, you know what, I'm going to play in because I'm not that scared because I have multiple Witchers and I have the Novices, so he's valuing this thinning, but he has to be careful. He's playing a very dangerous game here. We see that, you know, with double Weather ticking on 2 rows, I mean, Miracle's
maybe that's the pass right there.
I think so, yeah.
You don't set up your waitments as well for later, which kind of sucks. But in general, it's very, very difficult to fight against multiple weathers. In this case, it's ticking for 5 a turn. You basically have to guarantee that your play is good enough to beat his card plus those 5 points. And if you can't guarantee that, you can't afford to do this. So he's taking a bit of a risk here, actually, in that he's not guaranteeing It's only a 12-point play at the end of the day, so it's not like it's a huge amount of tempo. If Son of Flame can make a big enough tempo play here, he can severely punish Team Miracle for that pass, or for that play instead of a pass.
Yeah, and he can't though, just barely, not enough to here. So Miracle now is reevaluating. Okay, what's my opponent's hand? What could he have? He could say, you know what, you might not be able to beat me if I play this other novice, but it's so risky because if he is wrong, like you mentioned, he might just lose the game if he calculates this wrong. If he guesses wrong and his opponent can do this in one, you probably lose the game because you're never going to get that card back.
Yeah, and the big thing here too, he has those double white portraits in hand. He really can't afford to play them right now because his best two targets are two machines. And this deck, again, it has ease of access to its resurrection ability for its machines, so that'll just come right back and give Son of Flame even better value that he doesn't have access to right now. His graveyard is bare of any machines, so his Corsairs are dead, and his clan pirate captains aren't that great either. They can only fetch from his deck when you really, really want to save it to be fetching from the graveyard instead for you. So we see a situation here where he does finally elect to give it up. Like we said, it's probably the last card he can actually get out of his opponent without falling behind. So we'll get out of it this round. We'll see where each of these players stand going forward, as Son of Flame is down a card, but he is up a round now.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is we look here and we have to wonder, so we saw Son of Flame, he used his Birna, he used his Vader Maker. So what is he looking to do in a long round here? It's kind of just Whale Harpooner. He's looking for a longer round where a lot of units are going to be played, and he's looking for Whale Harpooner to maybe carry him on that value. We see Miracle goes ahead and he discards the Cantrella because he doesn't want it next round. Giving your opponent the 13 points is very rarely worth it. So now we're looking at Son of Flame does have the Renew for the Birna, but everything else in his hand might actually get outclassed by what Miracle's doing. Viper Witchers and Ointments are a heck of a card.
And that Kahir draw is absolutely massive. It gives Team Miracle a really huge tempo play that's very difficult, if not impossible, for Son of Flame to actually disrupt at this point. He didn't do anything that stops the Calfeet. His one saving grace here is that Mandrake didn't really get to do its job and make that a huge Calfeet. So overall, I agree with what you said. Overall, this is a situation where Son of Flame has a lot of good cards here, but they're pretty baseline in where their points are. There's no huge tempo swings here. It's going to be him trying to control the board 12 to 15 points at a time. So the question is, can Team Miracle actually do enough here to stop that from being something that can happen? And we see the Asara coming down to put two machines back in the deck, which really puts the screws to Son of Flame. If he doesn't have the Pirate Captains in hand to deal with this, he basically just gets a couple cards bricked. He's sitting on Corsairs instead of Pirate Captains.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing now we're looking here is he used a Seer to shuffle back two machines. I'm a little surprised, if we're going to be honest, because Pirate Captain tutors from the deck, not just with Corsairs in the graveyard. So I'm a little surprised to see him shuffle the machines because it doesn't actually slow him down too much. I would have maybe liked to have seen him instead try to further his own game plan and shuffle some ointments for some ointment chains. So I'm not sure about the Asir. I'm not... What are you thinking here, Vishra? How do you like the Asir play from Miracle and then Son of Flame using his own Asir and then decoying it himself? What do you like about these?
I think overall it's not a bad situation to use that first one to put the machines back in. You're basically saying to your opponent, if you don't have multiple captains, you're going to have a very bad time if you're relying strictly on Corsair here. This is kind of cheeky from Son of Flame. He's making the Asir, shuffling back in multiple things, and he's getting to decoy it too because of the Viper Orchard here. So it's a little bit of a cheeky move here that might pay off and might help break some of the Miracle's ointments coming out. But overall, I don't hate the line. I think that if you try to get too deep in the ointment chain, you might fall behind. So I think it's a good idea for the Miracle, which is not going to pay off in this specific scenario.
Fair enough. All right, Flake, the man of the hour. You're 50-50 on predictions now. I need to know. Does Miracle's hand have enough to get there and send this to a Game 5? I gotta know.
Now, you think that it might just be a 50-50. Unfortunately for you plebs who don't have the gift of foresight, I already know, and I'm not going to actually spoil that for you because that would ruin the whole tournament. So I'm going to allow you and your analytical prowess to sort of decipher what the winning combination would be and then who's going to have it. My money, you know who my money's on in this scenario. Team Miracle, to me, seems like the best option, especially with cards like Kahir over there, which can really string together a serious amount of points. And it seems that with every Viper Witcher kind of finding full value with those big targets, coming down for 15 points apiece also plays a big role in this. And without the weather ticking, like you guys were saying, that pass early on where he was kind of pushing his luck over and over and over again, where that 12-point became a 7-point lead, became a 2-point lead, and he took that opportune pass, and I think he passed just at the right time. He kind of pulled the shoot just at the right altitude, and now it's playing in his favor. So I'm still gonna give this to Tin Miracle, and he's gonna complete the reverse sweep, but we still have some game left to play here, and a lot of things can happen, especially with something like Restore in your back pocket.
I have to agree that, I mean, like you mentioned, Restore is a heck of a card. It is going to be really close. I'm inclined to cheer for Son of Flame in this Skellige deck. I think it's such a cool deck. I'm just so in love with this deck. I feel myself cheering for it every time I see it come up. But Alchemy just is such a good deck at just playing removal with a body. I think it actually outclasses the Skellige deck a tiny bit. Obviously, the decks do slightly different things, so they're not exactly one-to-one comparisons. But in this matchup, where removal with the body is the name of the game, I think Alchemy outclasses this deck a little bit. In other matchups, obviously, the Skellige deck does have its strong points, but I think in this exact moment, we're seeing effectively Alchemy kind of just say, you know what, I'm the king of removal right now, and I'm going to be able to do this better. So...
And I think right here, this might be the turning point to see just how good this Cahir to Calvate can actually turn out to be. You're going to need to... at least convert on a solid amount of points here. So the 16 that he's getting off of it doesn't seem ideal. It doesn't seem like the greatest, or the 18 rather, but it's better than nothing, I guess. But it seems like that could have been better. That could definitely have been something. I mean, I don't think that he got what he wanted out of it.
Okay, so I have to agree, and Vish, maybe you can help me out with this here. He elected to go Whale Harpooner on the back row on a Seer for 1 less point than Whale Harpooner on the mid row. Is he trying to play around Expiredale? What's he thinking here?
Expiredale, he might be trying to kind of bluff something from his opponent to see if he can open up that way. I don't really think it's going to matter here, as we do see that Vesemir come out for an even bigger point swing here. We saw 2 really high tempo plays there come out from Tin Miracle. And there are things that Son of Flame is finding that his deck can't keep up with. One thing we're seeing from this Alchemy deck as it goes deeper and deeper into this tournament is that the Croc deck is that it is very, very good at disrupting engines. It is not a point machine. It is limited in the points it can pump out. And we're seeing it right now with Tin Miracle putting out multiple 20-point plays in a row that the Croc deck just can't keep up with that. It's looking like its maximum point value is going to be around 18 points a turn, and Tin Miracle is beating that each turn. So we see him here. He can see the red on the wall. He just passes here, as we do see ourselves going to a game 5, as Alchemy is able to put the points on the board to actually take over that Croc that could deepen around 3. And Blake, your prediction's getting close.
Of course, now being from, I do have the pedigree of being the best Gwent player of all time, which is actually something
that's true.
I don't like to flaunt or, sort of rub in anyone's faces. But I am undefeated on the pro circuit, so I've never been beaten by people like Tailbot has never beaten me. Freddie Dave's, life coach I've never lost a game to these people. So I kind of keep that very close to heart, that I am the greatest Gwent player of all time. So when I make these predictions, you should probably take heed and take my advice. But Locke, where do you think with your inferior outlook on this?
So I'm thinking right now we're going to see Control Skellige versus Control Skellige in the final game, and these players are getting into it. Honestly, I think this one is going to come down a bit to how well these players navigate around Whale Harpooner versus Bjorna, and I think positioning is going to be the biggest thing to watch this game. I think that this matchup, as with all Control matchups, I think it actually is going to be pretty skill intensive, actually. I think how these players choose to position is going to be a really big deal, and I think Miracle has to dry pass. Oh, he didn't. Wait, but...
So I'll take a look here. I'll take a look into it here. One big thing to note here. We do see that Miracle has more goals overall than Son of Flame, which is good. I don't think that you can actually dry pass. That's one thing that you mentioned there, is that because he has to be new in his hand, I don't think he's allowed to dry pass here. If he dry passes, he has to play the handout next round, basically, which isn't great. So I think this might be a matchup where you actually don't dry pass, as is traditional in a lot of mirror matches. And we see both of them here with a pretty mirror play with the Pirates coming out right away. One off the Pirate Captain, which gives a slight point advantage to Son of Flame. However, we do see Tin Miracle here just electing to play this buyout. He hits the restore here, which is actually really nice for him. And he's kind of in a situation here where he's not going to be set up perfectly for the future rounds.
And again, I mean, we're just seeing it here. We see the spy trade happen, and we see this come down. It's just, we see the punish, though, on to Miracle for not dry passing, because effectively, his opponent was able to go. His opponent was able to play the Pirate Captain into the Demon Pirates to thin the deck, whereas effectively Miracle had to just play the Pirate Captains from hand, and that's a pretty big deal. But Miracle going with the Vader, so he wants to catch up from that 1 point deficit he's at, and he's committing to a long round here with Vader. This is really interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that we should note here too is Pirate Captain seems like they're probably one of the best tools overall in this matchup. It does so many things. It thins your deck, it gives you your resurrection abilities. It's the best restore target in the deck by a mile. And we're seeing that Son of Flame has better access to it right now than Team Miracle does. So we'll have to see if that actually comes back to matter in the future. But right now, it doesn't look like it's that bad of a spot. Even with the Watermocker, Son of Flame is in a really good spot there. The Champion of Hob comes down, gives him a lot of value here, and we'll see what happens with this Whaler. Part of me wants to see him pull that Champion of Hob to the Siege to deny any decoy chances. We'll see whether or not he sees that and whether he thinks that's actually worth the points from one of his cards here or not. And it looks like he does go ahead. He lets take the 1 point less just to ensure no decoy can come out from Son of Flame.
Yeah, and I like it a lot. Like you mentioned, we saw earlier in the tournament, we saw someone play the Champion of Hob and then get to decoy, and that's such an insane play because you get the reset and the buff onto the Hob, and it redeploys as a 10, so it's even better than Selkirk. And Selkirk is a fantastic gold, so I think denying the decoy is actually really smart and a really big deal. So I like what you mentioned. You know, if he elects to leave that up, he is gaining 1 more point on the Harpooner, but he is super punished by the decoy.
Now, he did get the option here off this him. If Lookit's going to use Create, as it seems like this matchup is the one where Create is going to see the most play as long as you already have your Spy out. Only Watermocker and Champion of Hob from both of these players off of their Creates, and both of them chose Watermocker here. Now, do you think there was any reason for Son of Flame to contemplate maybe using that Champion as an option off of that and picking off that Whaler, or should he have gone with this land like he did already?
I kind of wouldn't have minded seeing the. I liked the Whaler in the way that he did it, but I wouldn't actually have hated seeing the Champion of Hob off of that either. Something to note, though, is because this matchup does seem very weather-centric over who can stick more weather, I do think there is a lot of merit to going for the Create into the Vader just for the upside of the actual, weather war, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there is a lot of merit to that, but I think that Champion of Hob is a really good card too, so I think it's really situational here.
And we see Son of Flame here. After the Champion Hob comes down from Tin Miracle, we'll see him basically mirror the play that Tin Miracle did him earlier, and he'll use his 10-point Whaler to pull that into the weather. Now, interesting thing here for Tin Miracle is he has an option to pass here. He's still very slightly ahead here. We'll see if he elects to. It looks like he's not going to. He's going to spend that Kroll, get rid of the larger Whaler. That will come into play later in the game as Corsair will be able to bring those machines back, and it will negate 2 extra points from him here in the future. Big thing to note here is that Son of Flame does not have that option yet. Or he has it rather, but he elected not to do it yet. He elected instead just to Whaler that Udorek to the melee row instead.
Okay, Vishra, I got a question for you. If you are a Miracle, when do you start to entertain this pass? When do you start to think to yourself, you know what? I've put up the good fight, but I don't think I should stay any longer, because he does have that Restore, he does have that Renew, both cards he's not looking to play this round. When do you start to become afraid of potentially losing your card?
I think this is realistically probably one of the last cards he'll play. You kind of want to hold on to both of your Resurrection cards in hand, that being the Restore and the Renew. And it seems like you said earlier, the weather's going to be a key part of this matchup. So keeping that weather in hand until that long-ish round 3, probably in his best interest. So I'd expect this to probably be where we see that pass out of him. Kind of take your card here. You've gotten both players down to a good spot at this point. Your opponent's going to pass next round, and then you'll be in a decent set for round 3. I think if you play too deeply here, holding that Watermocker any longer is going to be a really big problem for him, actually, because it's not going to get the value that he wants to get then. It'll just be a Thunder, and at that point, it might just be re-enabling extra clan Pirate Captains, which would be a very big issue for him if he does.
That's what I was actually wondering myself, is he maybe bleeding himself by playing into this? Because, like we mentioned earlier, and like you just mentioned, the weather is so important in this matchup that because he was able to keep his Vader, and set up a pass earlier in the round. I wonder if by playing these extra 3 or 4 rounds, he's actually bleeding himself out of value on this Vader. I mean, it doesn't necessarily look like a very obvious play, but oftentimes Vader doesn't thunder for full value in this matchup because of the fact that the units are 7s and 8s. So I'm wondering, is this actually worth it? And I really think he needs to pass here. Okay, he did. He agreed with us.
Yeah, this is about as deep as you can do it. I think that he might have taken it a little bit too long. We'll see going forward if it winds up mattering at all to him. But he gets in a situation where it's going to cost his opponent basically not that much. We see that the launch comes out here, but overall, Son of Flame doesn't have nearly as good of a hand setup as Miracle does. He just has the decoy Fire Captain, which admittedly are both good. They're not renew restore level good. So Son of Flame is actually, I think, okay with this overall. He got to bleed out cards that weren't great anyway, and now he has a chance of drawing those good cards for later. Whereas Tin Miracle was like, I already have that set for round 3. Let me get down to just that, and we'll hopefully bleed something good out of Son of Flame. So we see the mulligans here. See that Artifact Impression gone away immediately from Son of Flame because it is not a good card in this matchup. And Tin Miracle got a pair of Corsairs, which isn't great, actually. You want to kind of save those. You want to save as many for round 3 as possible. So getting one out now might not be the best play, and we'll see if it actually comes up to be a problem for him later. If he gets enough Pirate Captains to where he could get all 3 out, it's actually going to be a problem where he's going to be missing one Resurrection he won't have otherwise, or he would have had otherwise.
Yeah, and he elects to use the Corsair there over the Vader. I gotta wonder, do you think that I actually wouldn't have minded seeing him use Vader there rather than Corsair to take the round? I think Corsair might find more value in this round than that Vader will in a only 5-card round.
Vader for weather is not going to be great right now. The big thing is that it gives you the Thunder options. It gives you a bit more flexibility. Again, we'll see whether this actually comes back to haunted, but I think it might have been the right call there. And again, this Scorch being drawn along with that Artifact Impression from Son of Flame, these are not good cards. These are the 2 cards that they both probably wanted to see the least amount overall of their entire decks. So they both kind of have one dead-ish card here, and it'll be interesting to see just who this affects the most. As we see the Vidar coming out just for us on an empty board here.
Yeah,
so
both
not
players not super happy with how this one's going. The interesting thing here is that for Son of Flame, his compression obviously leaves a 2-power trinket on the board, but it will always guaranteed have a target. The Scorch is a little bit better than compression, but it isn't guaranteed to have a target, so Miracle is sort of banking on his opponent hitting his stuff because that's kind of what this deck does, and I wouldn't actually be surprised to see him just use the Scorch here just for 8 even, maybe.
You have to think of whether or not this is the spot for it. Restore is going to go on Pirate Captain, which will be an 8. It'll wind up at the end of the chain giving you an 8 as well off of most likely a Whaler. So I'd expect to see him put 2 8s on the board here. There's a chance he could take the risk and see if his opponent can deal with them, put them into the weather, and then get a Scorch, but it's a really, really risky play. If I'm him, I'm just taking my 8 here. It's not going to end up well for him, I don't think, because it's just feed into his opponent's hand. But I think this is probably your last shot at actually getting that off for the full value.
Agreed, because now we're looking at Renew onto Heim in this matchup is a heck of a power play as well. Renew Heim into creating that Champion of Hav. You know that you'll always get it because there is only 2 silver units played that you can take, so you know you're always going to find it. So Renew Heim is a pretty big deal here. It is a little bit better than Birna in this case, but not by much. So a little bit of an edge for Miracle just because of that Renew, but not a very large one. This is still really close. That compression is going to be something to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you see that the Scorch did come out there, just took the 8 where it could get it, which I'm totally fine with. I don't think there was going to be much of a better spot unless he went for the Renew there, and the Renew that would have been pretty risky. Overall here, it'll be interesting to see how Tin Miracle plays this. His only other line there, I think, would have been the him into the champion that turn, but then it's relying on the opponent having the restore to be better, so I think it's fine the way he did it. Pirate Captain coming out here, and he wants to leave with us instead of the him play, so we'll see what he gets here for the full chain. He will go for the Corsair, and we'll see which option he takes here. I think it'll have to be the Whaler just so he gets that extra tick from the weather, but maybe he's something where he doesn't want to take that. Maybe he expects maybe his opponent has a Scorch of his own, doesn't want to give him a 0 value out of it. He wants to make it a negative value, so he has to discard it. We'll see what he does here. I don't think there's a good logical reason not to take it here.
Yeah. I don't think you're too afraid of the Scorch just because there are 2 8s on the board, and if you go Warship, it's 7 + 4, but if you play the Harpooner, it's 8 + 2 + 2, so it is a tiny bit more, and this is honestly such a close game 5 because even though Miracle's only barely ahead and he has a card down, one of those cards in Son of Flame's hand is worth 6 points. It is barely even a card right now.
Yeah, so I think what Son of Flame here is thinking of is what do I decoy here? Because he has two options here. He can either decoy right now for the Pirate Captain, getting, I believe he should still have his third Corsair, or he could also pull a boat from his deck if it's still in his deck, or he can spend that AC now, and then next turn he has the option to decoy that Whaler out of the Frost, reset it, and also get the points off of that as well, pulling it into the Seadra. So he actually has a couple different options here, depending on what he thinks his opponent has, what his future play is, and it's just goes to show that there's a lot of depth to the options, even with just 2 cards left in your hand for this deck. So he does go with the decoy for the Pirate Captain here, pull up the Corsair, and we'll get his last boat here. This is the last res for the game, is on another Whaler, pulling it into that Skellige Storm. And we'll see if his lead's enough here, as he is up by 18 points, but out comes the renew for him. And I'm guessing we'll probably see the champion
Not
on here.
enough, yeah. And it's just, I mean, it's just not enough, just barely. Champion of Hav, a huge card there, but I mean, Artifact, it was just barely not enough. The Skellige Storm actually got just enough value off of those Harpooners, constantly battering him down. He takes it by 5 points, and Miracle does not complete the reverse sweep. Flake, what happened?
So somewhere along the lines of my prognostication over here, I did see the number 5, and I thought that it had to do with Tin Miracle coming back and taking it in 5 games. But what I meant to say was it was 5 games, but he'd lose by 5 points. Again, it has to do with the translation and you know, like it was something that was lost in translation. Again, this is a Russian Gwent tournament, and I don't speak Russian, so all my visions that I was having was in Russian, so I kind of had to make those quick translations in my head, which didn't exactly pan out. But yeah, so in this case, I mean, Yandex is the winner of this tournament. So sorry, Son of Flame, my bad. Son of Flame is the winner of this tournament, hanging on and sort of locking himself down after that quick scare and the fighting back from Tin Miracle, who brought it to the 5th game. Unfortunately, he did not have enough left in the tank to complete the reverse sweep. Nonetheless, it's still a lot of fun for all this. So, I mean, you guys, from Vishra and Lockin, you guys did a phenomenal job. And what moments stuck out in your mind over here is the fact that it was a nearly completed reverse sweep, the uniqueness of the decks, the Moonlight prominence, what brought it up, or what was resounding in your mind, Vishra?
I thought it was really good overall. I thought that I love Son of Flame's lineup overall. He brought 3 decks that are relatively unknown. The Croc deck is gaining popularity. We saw you also had the mirror match there at the end, but overall it's 3 decks that are kind of out of left field, or 4 rather, excuse me. Alchemy deck is kind of not, but the other 3 are not standard decks. And he was rewarded for not bringing meta decks, which is something that can happen a lot of the time. You can either afford to, you can bring meta decks, or you can bring things that are out of left field and give you an advantage that way. And it paid off for him today to bring things that people wouldn't expect, that aren't the standard things that everyone brings to tournament lineups. And I'm really happy to see just how well he played those decks too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Flake. This is all you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, no, I was just actually going to kick it to you and think about your, or ask you about your thoughts on this one, Lock, and what, what stuck out in your mind as making this very unique. Of course, these are not names that people predominantly know or that are very common. Of course, these are great players. These are people who have, won previous Russian tournaments as well. So there's obviously some good Gwent play in their bloods. But I want to know from you, Locke, I mean, bringing these interesting decks and such, I mean, there's obviously a flavor coming just off of Wild Hunt where you see a lot of these homebrews come in and actually, kick a little ass there. And in this case, what's the resounding moment?
So for me, it's pretty similar to what Vishra actually mentioned. He talked about, seeing some new deck lists, some different things. And this is kind of where Gwent shines, I think, is in a tournament setting where you can have like a lineup, where you can have a strategy, you get a ban, you get to do all these really cool things. And that's what I really like to see is overall, Gwent is just a phenomenal game in a tournament setting. And we see that people, because they know that they have a ban, because they know what they're going to face a little bit, they decide, you know what, I can afford to be a little creative because I want to target this. And then you have this reverse psychology where someone says, okay, if my opponents are all going to target this, I'm going to bring this, because there is something to be said for your opponents, for example, trying to target greatswords, but you bring control Skellige, because any deck that targets greatswords is going to be, really weak into this control Skellige deck, because it just has so many, cards it can res. You can't block out the captains and the corsairs, but it's just going to outpoint you. So I think that it's really cool to see this evolve happen, where we see this rock paper scissors adaptation of the metagame. And I also think another thing that's really cool is that we see these players that are they're obviously very skilled players. Son of Flame winning his second Russian Gwent Open, but we're seeing that players who aren't even necessarily like at the level of guys like Tailbot making and adapting these lists for tournaments, because it means that we're seeing overall, just across the board, we're seeing adaptations even just outside of official Masters tournaments, which means the ladder's more interesting, and it makes all this more interesting.
So just want to let everyone know that the top 4 decks will actually be posted on the Russian Gwent Twitter feed, which is at @RU_Gwent. So if you guys want to get the actual deck lists, they're available over there for you to consume, and they go ahead and flood the ladder with them. But you saw them how they play and how they interact. But I mean, from start to finish, this is a very entertaining tournament. A lot of close games, and I want to say a big thank you to the Russian Gwent League for allowing myself, Vishra, and Lockin to be a part of it, and it was definitely an honor. And going forward, I don't suspect that we won't see a lot more partnership. But I mean, any parting words, Vish and Lock, before we part ways with the lovely crowd?
Go swim the ladder with croc boats and moonlight. Do it now.
Yeah, go. I will eagerly await.
Run.
Exactly.
I will definitely.
Time is ticking. You guys got to get there now. The market is moving.
That's it. Buy low on this one, guys,
Yeah.
because this is a high cap on this deck archetype. I'm telling you, the returns are going to be enormous when you play the deck, have no idea what the hell you're doing, and then quit after 2 attempts because you keep losing to the same Scorch deck. Nonetheless, friends, I will say this from myself and from everybody at Russian Gwent. I want to say thank you for tuning in. We will be back next month with more of the Russian Gwent Open. And congratulations again go to Son of Flame, who took down Tin Miracle in 5 games. For myself, Flake, for Vishra and Lockin, we bid you a good day. Be kind to one another, and we'll see you very soon. Have a good night.
Have a good night.